The main character was sitting near the campfire and warming his hands. He decided to cook his own food over a campfire. The main character said that it was already getting dark outside. Suddenly, unusual glowing objects appeared next to him. The main character looked at them in surprise. He was in awe of their beauty. Everything around the main character was filled with these glowing objects, and it was very beautiful. They jumped on the flowers and swam right above the water. The main character turned to his friend, whose name was Seal, and said that he himself did not care about being a hero. The guy raised his head to the sky and told Ciel that he just wanted to go as far as he could. He just wants to go around this wonderful world and look at the picturesque views. After a while, the main character entered the Adventurers Guild. He was wearing a huge messenger bag. All the people who were in the tavern were looking at the main character. One of the visitors said that he was betting 4 coppers that he could. Another visitor held 5 coppers in his hands and asked his friend that this was all he could bet. He said he was betting 5 that the guy would fall. But still, the main character walked steadily and did not even stagger. Everyone stared after the guy in surprise. One of the visitors couldn't believe that the main character was calmly walking with all this on his back. His neighbor asked him that it was cool, and then he remembered that he hadn't seen him. The main character turned to his friend and asked what he was going with him this time. It was a different world. The main character was drafted as a hero candidate, but since then he's just a courier. The main character went out onto a small street and said that he would try to make this delivery. There were no machines, technology, or science in this world. The reason why he, an ordinary Japanese, can survive in this world is walking. Walking is a skill that was bestowed upon him when he came to this world. The main character, whose name was Sora, walked up to the meat counter and looked at him with appetite. The guy turned to the seller and asked him for 2 skewers on a skewer. The seller behind the counter greeted the main character and asked him that he was working as a courier. Sora took his food and he cheerfully informed his friend Ciel that the seller had given them 1 free skewer. Sora asked me to wait for Ciel. Ciel, in turn, did not wait for anyone. He attacked the meat, but Sora managed to remove the food from his mouth. He asked Ciel to stop doing that. Because Sora pulled the skewer, he touched his clothes with it and got dirty. This did not bother Sora, and he immediately applied purification magic. This allowed the main character to completely clean his clothes. Sora heard someone call out to him. It was 2 girls who shouted to Sora that they were there. They asked the main character where he was going today. The girls noticed that the litter smelled strongly of meat, but Sora himself was watching the girls non-stop. The girl asked Sora what was wrong with him and why he was looking at the castle like that. Sora got a little nervous and said, "No, it's okay." The guy thought that this castle reminded him of the day when he was called into this world. The girls asked the guy again where he was going. Sora replied that he was going to collect herbs a month ago at the castle. The king looked at a few guys and told them it was great. He thanked everyone who came to his call. The king called them 7 heroes, but Sora was very tense. The guy couldn't figure out where he was. Sora remembered that he was sure he was on the train. Sora was on his way to the high school entrance ceremony. That was 5 seconds ago. Suddenly, Sora noticed a bright flash of light, and before he knew it, he was already there. The king said that this is the kingdom of Elysia, and he is the ruling king. He called the guys, brave heroes, to his castle. The king said that he really wants them to defeat the recently resurrected demon king. Sora was very scared, and he once again clarified with the king what he had just said. The king laughed a little and said that his surprise was normal. He said that first they would all need to touch the ball that was on the counter. The king suggested starting with a guy named Shang Minaze. He put his hand to the ball, and in an instant, information appeared in front of him. His profession is a level 44 Tangses Sword King. He had sword skills, bloodlust, intimidation, body strengthening, one-punch knockout, insight, and accelerated thinking. Zhang was very happy and asked what his profession was, the king of the sword. He didn't understand who it was, but it sounded very powerful to him. Sora also thought it was cool, just like in an RPG. The king said that this is a rather impressive status. He turned to the brave heroes and asked them to listen to the king. He said that this is what they call the status bar. The summoned heroes are always with high statuses and a lot of skills. The king really wanted the 7 heroes to use it all against the Demon King. The king told the guys that they were all special. They were all destined to become heroes. They were all elected. Sora was very surprised by this and asked the king that he was the chosen one. One of the girls was very worried, and she was wondering what she had. The other girl confidently said that she would go next. Among the other heroes were the Mage King, the Saint, the Spirit Mage, the Paladin, and the Swordsman Master. They found out their statuses thanks to the balloon. The guys were very surprised by such results. Paladin asked that they were really heroes. It was cool. Sora tensed up a bit and thought that all these guys were so cool. After a couple of minutes, the king clapped his hands and attracted the attention of the other guys. He said that everything is wonderful. All the recognized heroes are very good. The king said that if the guys need it, they can just say the words, "Oh, ah," open the status to look at it. And so the king pointed at Sora and said that now it was time for the last hero. Sora panicked and thought that it was his turn. He looked at the other guys and thought that everyone had such cool professions, so he wanted one too. The guy remembered that he teaches his friends. Well, maybe he will get a priest. That's what he's going to find out now. The guy reached out to the ball and touched it. The guy's full name is Sora Fujimiya. He had no profession, so he was unemployed. He also didn't have a level. His strength, intelligence, endurance, speed, agility, and luck were at the first level. And of the skills, only walking. So he does not get tired of walking. All the heroes and the king himself immediately looked at Sora and asked in surprise why he had such indicators. Sora himself was very upset that he had no level and was unemployed. The guy realized that his status is just fucking garbage. Sora immediately realized that his only skill was walking. Of course, it sounded convenient. But this is not something you can go to the Demon King with. The king was silent for a while, but then he began to confer with the others about the status of the litter. After the discussion, the king stood up with a smile and said that there were only 6 heroes this time. He invited all 6 heroes to go where he points to go to the welcome banquet. But Sora got very excited and asked the king what about him. The king turned to the other guys and told him that, by the way, in order to return to their home world, they must defeat the Demon King and take his magic stone. The king was sure that it would be a dangerous journey, but first, they would have a holiday. But it's only for heroes. Sora was very upset that he had such indicators and was not accepted into the hero team. A guard approached the guy. He told Sora that he was going there. The guy looked at him silently. The guard opened the door of the hall and escorted Sora there. All the other 6 heroes were looking after him. The carriage brought the guy from the castle to the gate. The coachman drove out of the gate and stopped. The guy was shamelessly thrown out of the carriage. First, the guy himself fell to the ground, and then the coachman threw a bag of money to Sora. And after that, the carriage drove away, and the gates were tightly closed right in front of the litter. The guy was furious that he was really just called up to the group of 7 heroes, and after that they brazenly kicked him out to live on the street. Sora didn't understand what the hell was wrong with him. The guy took the bag that the coachman threw to him and began to open it. Sora wondered if they had given him enough money or not. The guy poured all the money out of the bag on the ground and saw that there were 2 silver and 10 copper coins. Sora was upset by this and wondered what he should do now. Suddenly his gaze fell on something. The guy saw a big street with a lot of people on it. Sora thought that he had seen the beauty of this world, and he was completely captivated by this view. The guy saw the houses on the street and saw that they were made of brick and stone. Sora also noticed that people were wearing strange clothes, and then he realized that it was all exactly like in the game. Sora was sitting right in the middle of all the people who were walking down the street. Because of this, he began to feel the gaze of passers-by. Sora began to fumble and get nervous because he was uncomfortable. The guy took off in an instant and ran past all the people wherever they looked. Sora apologized to anyone he might have accidentally pushed. Sora ran and thought about being thrown out of a castle in front of all these people in the cold, and even in such clothes. The guy ran to a safe place for him, where there were no people, and he sat down on the ground trying to catch his breath. Sora began to feel sad and think that now he was completely alone. But still, the guy didn't understand what he was doing and what he should do afterwards. Suddenly, thoughts came to Sora's head and he exclaimed, "Oh, come on. Just because his skills are just trash doesn't mean he's trash himself." He called everyone involved in the royal court and the hero group bastards. Sora remembered that in order for the status to appear, he had to say the words, open the status. And it really helped, and the status bar opened up in front of the guy. The guy saw his low scores again and said was bullshit. He would really like his numbers to be a little bit higher than they are now. But suddenly, his eyes fell on one of the indicators. It was an experience counter. It was 996 points out of 1,000. Sora realized that his description had changed. In the description of Sora's skill, it was stated that each step brings 1 experience point. This means that the number of steps that he walked from the castle to the place where he now found himself was turned into an experience, and it amounted to 996 points. But still, the guy wondered what would happen to him if he scored 1,000 points. It made the guy think. Suddenly, he smelled something. Sora thought that the street smells delicious, and it looks like this whole street consists of food stalls. At the same moment, Sora heard his stomach begin to make a pitiful rumble. The guy said that he really wants to eat. He already regretted missing breakfast that day. Suddenly, the guy's attention was attracted by a man who approached him. It was a huge man who had a large kitchen knife in his hands. He grinned at the guy and looked at him unkindly. This made Sora start to panic, and he wondered what this man wanted from him and why he approached him. The guy thought it was his doorway, and that's why he's so angry. Sora covered his face with his hand and awkwardly told the man that he did not know what he was guilty of, but still he apologized to him. Unexpectedly for Sora, the man abruptly raised his hand. He swung right at the guy, and he screamed very loudly in fear. The next moment, a barbecue on a skewer appeared in front of the guy's face. But Sora himself was very wary, because he did not expect such an outcome. The man smiled at the guy, said that it was a barbecue on a skewer especially for him. The man asked the guy that he was a beggar, wasn't he? But everything is fine, this barbecue will be at the expense of a man. Sora tensed and thought about what had just happened. In the end, this man turned out to be too kind. Sora did not want to take the kebab for free, and so he told the man that he had his money. The guy poured them out on the table and said he wasn't sure if it would be enough to pay for the meal. The man wanted to tell Sora that everything was fine and money was not needed, but the guy did not stop asking the man for forgiveness for this. Sora said that if the money he gave was not enough, then he would definitely work it out. The peasant scratched his head nervously and replied that, on the contrary, there was too much money. If it was another city, then Sora would have been robbed long ago. The man added that he would now teach the guy how to count money correctly. He said that 100 ordinary ones is 1 copper one. 100 copper coins is 1 silver coin. 100 silver is 1 gold, and 1,000 gold is 1 platinum. And one of his skewers is worth 1 copper coin and 8 ordinary coins. The man said that he definitely had enough for food. Sora thanked the man for helping him and explaining everything. The man handed the guy a skewer and said that he did not know where the guy came from. But still he asked him to be careful. The guy took a step, and his eyes widened. Sora saw that his level had risen again. It became clear to him that he was getting a skill point for the level. Now he had 0 out of 2,000 experience points in his experience counter, and 1 experience point. But Sora wondered if only he could see his status, or if the others could too. Sora noticed that he also had skills available to study assessment blocking, night vision, body strengthening, healing magic, magic manipulation, and detection. The guy thought that these were the skills that he could learn by spending skill points. The man noticed the thoughtful Sora and asked him what happened to him. The guy was scared and replied that no, nothing like that. Sora thought he needed something simple. The guy decided to apply the assessment, and a window popped up in which he wrote a question that he really wanted to spend experience points. The guy replied that yes, he wanted it, and Sora was very surprised. Sora looked at his skewer and saw that it was a wolf on a skewer. It was edible meat for a demon, and its quality was good. Sora thought that he could see details such as the type of meat and its quality. It was very useful for him. Sora thought that if he got skill points, he would be able to learn not only the grade, but also all the other skills. The man asked Sora that he was speechless because of the smell. The guy immediately came to his senses and thanked the seller for the food. So Sora decided to try the wolf meat. He took the first bite and his eyes widened. The guy was lost in the taste of this dish and thought that it was just unrealistically delicious. Despite its appearance, the meat was very juicy inside, and spices and marinade give it a magical taste, despite the fact that it is demon meat. The guy had a real feast in his mouth. The man saw Sora's enthusiastic and slightly worried face and made a straight face. The guy apologized to the man and said that he just hadn't eaten anything for a long time. This made the man laugh. The seller told Sora that he was able to describe his meat from the first bite. The man shared that the best chefs were trying to find out his secret. The man called the guy a guy and asked him what his name was. He replied that his name was Sora. The seller asked Sora, that he was in a bad life situation right now, wasn't he? And he offered the guy his help. This confused the guy a little. But still Sora continued to eat and enthusiastically said, "Ooh, holy kebab." After a while, the guy finished and told the seller that it was very tasty. When Sora started to leave, the man gave him a robe. The guy thought he hoped he didn't stand out too much from the crowd of these people. Sora was very glad that he came across such a good person who offered to help him himself. During the conversation, the seller told Sora that he would need to buy clothes because he looked quite strange. He showed him a piece of paper and told him that he would need to go there. Sora noticed that he was not tired at all, even though he had walked through the whole city. It became interesting to him that this was the walking skill. Sora approached the building and asked what it was there. The clothing store should be right here. Sora looked at the sign and couldn't make out what language it was. But suddenly an inscription appeared in front of him, right on top of the signboard, that this building was a sewing shop. Sora hoped that he wasn't the only one who saw it. Sora decided to go inside the sewing shop, and there he was met by a sweet girl. She said they had a visitor. He can come in and take their measurements. The girl started her work, and it took her an hour of time. After a while, the guy looked at himself in the mirror and was very surprised. He thought it was just like in an RPG game. The girl was also delighted with what she had done. She said yes. Great clothes came out. Of course, she sewed exactly to his size. Then, the girl told Sora that, by the way, his past clothes are made of high-quality fabric, and therefore she would like to buy them. This surprised the guy very much, and he asked her if she was sure about it. Sora couldn't believe that he came to buy clothes and left with money. After a while, Sora returned to the seller to show him his new clothes. When the man saw Sora, he laughed and said that it was a different matter now. Sora replied that it was all thanks to him. He thanked the salesman for lending him the robe. Sora handed the man the clothes and asked him if he could help him in any way, because he really wants to repay. The man laughed and asked Sora not to worry about it, but still Sora said that he insists on it. The man was slightly embarrassed and replied to the guy that if he wanted to, then he could deliver meat. The seller said that there is a hotel behind the hill which is run by his friend Ali, and Sora immediately agreed to this proposal. Sora shared with the man that he was just looking for a place to stay. The man replied that that was good. Ali will feed him. Sora walked away from the counter and thanked the man for his care, calling him uncle. But the seller stopped the guy and asked him to come back for a while. He asked Sora to take a frying pan in a tent with him. It would be his gift. Sora was very surprised and asked the man that he was serious about it now. Sora replied to the man's help that he did not have a backpack with him, but the seller immediately replied that he should take his backpack and binoculars to stare at the stars. Next, the man offered a boomerang, just like that, and also a security bell in case someone bad comes at night. Sora replied to the man that he didn't think he could carry it all. There's a mountain there. But Sora stopped himself and thought that maybe he could still do it with his skills. The guy told the seller that he would definitely be able to do it. The man was very surprised by this. Sora took the bulging backpack and hung it on his back. The salesman told the guy that no, he didn't need to do this, because he would break his back. Despite this, Sora straightened up and looked proudly ahead. This surprised the man very much, because he could not believe in the strength of the guy. Sora thought that the weight of his heavy backpack was gone as he walked. Sora waved goodbye to the salesman again and thanked him for everything. The embarrassed salesman agreed with him and asked him to come to him again later. And so Sora, with a huge suitcase, poisoned himself on the way. There was a huge mountain in front of him, and the hotel was at the very top. Sora thought that this was a real mountain, not a hill. He thinks that some concepts are different there. Sora was sure that the old one would have given up long ago. But at the moment, thanks to his walking skills, he feels that he is ready to move mountains. Sora looked up and saw a big bird there, which had very beautiful wings. Sora decided to apply his assessment skill to the bird, and a status bar appeared in front of him. It indicated that it was a rainbow bird. They hatch only at high temperatures. Her breasts reach a temperature of 95 degrees. Sora was surprised and thought it was the first time he had seen such a thing. There are so many new things in this world. Sora smiled and rode over the rocks across a small river. The guy said he was a little excited. Sora thought that his walking skill was useless, but in fact, it turned out to be just a great skill. When Sora was thrown out of Elysia Castle, he did not know what to do next or where to go. But on his way there were such kind people who helped him, and also delicious food. And the coolest thing of all was that everything was new to the guy in this world. It was unexpected for Sora, but still he enjoys this world. Suddenly Sora stopped, and there was surprise in his eyes. The guy saw a huge city in front of him. The guy was fascinated by the beauty of this place. Sora thought that he had been randomly summoned to this world. Then he was thrown out of the castle and didn't even know what to do next. It was hard for the guy to believe what was happening to him, but now he sees in front of him, and it gives him a little confidence in his actions. Sora uses her walking skill to explore this beautiful world. This is a story about how a conscripted non-hero seeks his interest in this world. It was the story of a guy named Sora and how he rocks the travel experience. Meanwhile, information appeared on the status bar that his experience counter had become 0 out of 3,000, and there were 2 experience points. After a while, Sora woke up in a small house and looked out the window. He thought that yesterday he had been called into this world, which means it wasn't a dream. Sora stretched and thought it was his first morning in a new world. The guy began to think about where he would start this day. Sora decided that he would start the day by looking for a job. Sora went back to the street, where a man he already knew was selling. He greeted the salesman, calling him uncle again. The man greeted him in return and handed him a skewer, asking if he wanted it. Sora replied that yes, he would eat. The guy thanked the seller for the offer. Sora approached the salesman and told him that he was looking for a job. The man replied that it was great, he was doing well. The seller asked Sora what he could do. Sora thought about it and did not immediately figure out what to tell the seller. The man realized that Sora was hesitating and told him that he was talking about alchemy, or, for example, potions. Sora thought about it again and replied that no, he couldn't do anything like that. The peasant replied that there was one place where he did not need the special skills he was talking about. Sora asked him what place he was talking about now. The man replied that this was a place where there could be a job for anyone, despite their abilities. The seller was sure that Sora would find exactly what he was looking for there. The man told Sora that he would need to walk along the main street and towards the west. There will be a large building there which he will just need to enter. When Sora got there, he realized that the Adventurers Guild was located in this building. Sora said admiringly that it was like an RPG again. The guy became very interested in what they really are, and so he decided to pluck up the courage and go inside to find out about it. Sora went into the guild and saw that there were men fighting with each other, and the rest of the adventurers were shouting at them to drag each other in. A man with dark hair told his opponent that he was climbing on him. The second one told him that he was a piece of shit. Suddenly, the men began to conflict even more, and one of them asked his opponent why he decided to climb up to him. But this man's fist hit Sora's head exactly. The men began to insult each other heavily, and Sora himself fell to the floor because of the blow. Sora began to cry and think that this was not how he imagined this place. But suddenly, Sora was in trouble again. Several books fell on him, and he looked up questioningly. There was a girl who worked in the guild. She saw that she had dropped the books right on the guy and started apologizing to him. The girl asked the guy that he was new to the guild. She bent down slightly to get a better look at the guy. But because of this, the rest of her books fell on Sora again. The books completely covered the guy, and the girl apologized to him again. Sora took his hand out of the mountain of books and told the girl that he would like to join the guild. The girl's name was Mikaro, and she was a receptionist at the counter. Mikaro told Sora that she was really sorry. They are now going through the inventory of old books. Sora replied to Mikaro that it was okay. He was fine. The guy thought that this girl was a cute clumsy. But Mikaro still told Sora that no, nothing was okay. But Sora decided to change the subject and told Mikaro that he had heard that he could find a job in the guild. Mikaro replied that yes, if he is in this place for the first time, then he will need to register first. The girl handed the guy a knife and paper and told Sora that the card needed some of his blood. This surprised the guy, but still he made an incision on his finger and dropped a drop of blood on the card. Then this blood began to spread throughout the sheet, and after a while the registration was completed. The card said that she was under the name Sora, and there was also the signature of the Guild of Adventurers of the Kingdom of Elysia. Sora looked at his card in surprise and pointed at it with his finger. Mikaro said that his rank is E now, so the card is white. Sora asked the girl in surprise what she was saying about the ranks. Mikaro replied that she did. Mikaro said that the guild has a hierarchy of ranks from E to S, is the highest rank, and E is the lowest rank. Mikaro asked the guy to take a look at this wall. The girl said that there are all orders coming from residents of this city and neighboring villages. She asked Sora to take any order he liked and bring it to the counter, where they had already assigned it to the guy. The girl also clarified that upon successful completion, he will receive the points and rewards necessary to increase the rank, but in case of failure of the task, he will be fined. This surprised the guy very much. Sora replied that he didn't even know. The guy looked at the men who were fighting with each other and said that he was not as strong as them. Mikaro replied that everything was fine. There were a lot of simple orders that a child could handle. Sora looked at the task wall and thought about it. The guy realized that there really are a lot of different orders. For example, the collection of medicinal magical herbs, herbs of the full moon. They are rewarded with 2 silver coins. Or a task to kill a wolf from the forest next door, for which the reward is 6 gold coins. Sora thought that he would need a sword to defeat the wolf, and he would not be able to complete this task. Suddenly, a huge man appeared behind the guy. He leaned over to Sora and told him not to even dare to go with the wolf. And immediately the man asked Sora that he wanted to tell him something. The guy was scared and replied that no, he didn't even think about doing it. Sora looked at the man carefully and thought that he was very creepy, and he couldn't understand why this man was bothering him. The man hit the task wall with all his might and told Sora that these tasks would definitely do for him. It was a delivery. The guy started to panic and set himself a lot of tasks. Sora said that yes, he was taking these assignments. Takes them all. Sora started walking away from the task wall and thought that the guild was a very scary place. Sora approached Mikaro and told her that he was taking these assignments. The girl began to arrange them, but she immediately said that he had taken deliveries for the Guild of Merchants, Pharmacists, and 6 more deliveries. Mikaro asked Sora that he was confident in these tasks. Sora thought that he was just scared of that guy and that's why he typed such tasks. But he told Mikar that he wanted to learn the city, so he took so many assignments. Mikaro replied that everything was clear now. She approached a large number of packages and told Sora that they were his deliveries. The guy was very surprised by the number of them, and so he gathered all the goods, packed them, and put them on his back. Mikuru finally wished Sora a pleasant day, and the guy just thought that he was very scared to look at these people. He slammed the door of the guild and thought that this was a huge stress for him. There were no such people in Japan unless at school, but he avoided them. Sora took out and opened the map to study it. The guy thought that everything in this world is a little different, but still, he was worried about whether he would be able to settle in there. Sora began to turn his head in different directions to drive away these thoughts. The guy confidently said that no, he has a job, he doesn't have time to get depressed. Meanwhile, he started the delivery. He carried 5 sacks of flour for the Merchant Guild, 3 bundles of medicinal herbs for the Pharmacist Guild, and many more. And so he delivered the last package. Sora thought that there were so many different guilds in this world. He was also treated to ice cream. The guy noticed that he was not tired at all during this hard day's work. Therefore, the walking skill is damn useful for him. Sora said the command to open the status, and a status panel appeared in front of him. Sora noticed that by simply walking, he had already reached the 6th level. It seems to the guy that every time he raises the level, each indicator increases by 10. Sora thought that yesterday he only needed to take 1,000 steps in order to raise his level, and today he had to make 7,000, which he had almost done. Sora realized that, along with increasing the level, he gets skill points. But the guy noticed that he didn't have another one. And then, he remembered that he had spent it yesterday. Sora thought that if he kept walking like this, he would be able to learn something else. He has almost reached the level. He needed to keep moving forward. After a while, Sora walked up to a large building and called out to the owners. The door on the balcony began to open slowly. A girl came out to him on the balcony. The guy apologized and saw that there was a girl in front of him who asked the guy what he wanted. Sora started to get nervous and thought that she was just a beauty, like an actress or something. Sora awkwardly replied that he had a letter for him personally. This is a letter from a man named Ray Renova. The girl immediately tensed up greatly upon hearing this name. This angered the girl, and she pointed at Sora with her finger. The girl said she was coming out now, and she was asking him to stay put. Sora didn't understand what was going on, but he stopped and waited. Then the girl abruptly opened the door of the house, and Sora handed her a letter. The girl grabbed it just as abruptly and immediately began to read. She didn't say a word to Sora and just closed the door in front of him. Sora stood for a couple of seconds and looked questioningly at the door of the house. Sora called out to the girl and reminded her that she had to sign. The girl abruptly opened the door again and asked the guy that he would go back in order to inform about the completion of the order. The girl was very emotional and she showed Sora the letter. The girl asked him to give this letter to Rei. The letter itself said it was from Vanessa. The girl asked the guy that he would take this order. The guy replied that yes, of course. And the girl immediately handed the letter to the guy. Sora set off on his way back and began to think about the whole situation. The guy thought he was just a courier, but he was wondering what these letters were about. After a while, he went to Rei's house and called out to the owner, asking if anyone was at home. The man carefully opened the door, looked out from behind it, and saw who had come to him. Sora asked the man that his name was Rei. The man replied that yes, it is. He lifted his glasses and suspiciously asked the guy who he was. Sora apologized to the man and replied that he was staying with him in order to inform Vanessa about the delivery of his letter. The man looked at the guy questioningly, because he did not understand what letter he was talking about. The guy sat down and began to take out an envelope. Sora said he also had a letter from Mr. Rei. Sora handed it to the man and said it was a letter from Vanessa. But Rei still didn't understand what was going on, and he asked the guy if he had written to her. Sora looked at Rei questioningly, because he did not know the answer to this question. The man's face began to sweat, and Sora noticed it. He reminded me that it was a letter from Vanessa. Rei immediately remembered the girl and replied that he had written her this love letter when he was drunk. The guy started to deny it and say that he was a fool, and he didn't have to do it. Sora asked in surprise that it was a love letter, but Rei was all red with shame and didn't answer anything. Sora thought that everything was clear to him, which is why Vanessa reacted like that. The guy told Rei that it turns out to be a response to a love letter. Rei replied that yes, probably. Sora handed the letter to Rei, but there was an awkward silence between them. Sora told Rei that he would support him. He's with him. The guy thinks there was a good answer. Rei hesitantly asked the guy that he really thought so. Rei asked the guy for a minute because he was panicking, and some time passed, and Rei kept trying to open the letter and decide to read it. After 10 minutes, Rei opened the envelope and began to read the letter. Sora was very interested in what was written in the letter. After a moment, Rei smiled and replied to the guy that everything was fine. Sora hesitated for a second, but then he grabbed Rei and started congratulating him on it. The guy noticed that his soul seemed to be coming out of Rei's body. He got scared and asked Rei to return to his body. After a while, Sora set off again. The guy thought that he could not even imagine that he would see such a thing on the first day. Sora walked up to the guild building and thought that all he had to do was report to the guild. He had a good day today. When Sora walked slightly inside the guild, he saw the wary gazes of the other adventurers. It made the guy tense up. He walked past all the people to Mikar and thought that he had forgotten about all these people. He wanted to report the assignments as soon as possible so that nothing would happen. Sora walked up to the counter and laid out his documents to the girl. The guy informed Mikau that he was done, and here are his invoices. Mikaru called the guy cool because he completed a whole mountain of tasks. She asked Sora that he wasn't even tired. The guy replied that no, he was not tired. The guy thanked the girl for her care. Mikaru approached Sora and asked in his ear that among the orders was a letter from Mr. Rei. Sora replied that yes, it is. Mikaru asked the guy how it ended. The guy replied that he thought they would be together. After his words, everyone in the guild fell silent and stared at Sora. The guy immediately thought that he had said something wrong. Suddenly, Sora was grabbed in his arms and joyfully began to be thrown up. Sora himself did not understand why they were doing this. The adventurers shouted that he was doing a great job and had done a great job. But Sora asked them in what sense. After a while, the tables were elegantly set in the guild, and everyone began to celebrate. The girls at the counter also started to rejoice and say that everything worked. At that moment, the men were drinking a lot of alcohol, and one of them said that Rei would kill him. The other man replied that he needed a drink for it. One of the adventurers approached Sora and told him that they were celebrating, and he was treating the guy. But still, Sora still didn't understand why they had started all this. The man told the guy that the whole guild knew about Rei's infatuation. He was silent for 27 years, and now they are all celebrating such an event. The man patted the guy on the shoulder and said that he had brought them together. Now he was a cupid. Sora thought that he definitely did not expect this. Suddenly, the same morning man appeared behind Sora's back, and the guy was very scared of him. Sora thought it was Tin. It was him again. He doesn't want to scare him. Sora apologized to the man and said that he did not mean to offend him. The man asked the guy that when he was looking at the order for the wolf, he tried to stop him, but almost killed him by loading the delivery. The man called the guy a man of words. Sora tensed up very much and looked at the man questioningly. Sora asked the man what he wanted to kill. The man replied that he did not. He bowed his head in front of the guy and said that he just wanted to keep him safe. He asked Sora to understand before he actually killed her. Another adventurer pushed the man away from the litter and asked what was easily wrong with him. He asked the man to learn how to speak correctly, and Sora thought that this man had tried to tell him in the morning that it was dangerous. Sora made such conclusions based only on their appearance. And when the guy talked to that man and some other people, he realized that they were all really kind people. Suddenly, the doors of the guild opened, and a man appeared with Ray in his arms. He told the other adventurers that he had the main star of the day there. Everyone started chanting Ray's name and cheering for her. Sora thought that the people of this guild were extremely friendly. They started pouring drinks for Ray and celebrating his victory. Sora thought that all these people were bright and cheerful. Ray had a letter in his hands, and all the people started asking him to read it. Sora also decided to congratulate Ray. Suddenly, the masked man began pouring a drink straight into Sora's mouth. The man called out to him and said that he would throw away his hooves. But the masked man replied that it was just juice. After all Sora's adventures, the guy realized that he had fallen in love with this world. A week later, Sora woke up at Ali's hotel. He stretched and said good morning. As Sora immersed himself in the work and life of the guild, his understanding of this world grew dramatically. The guy started discussing alcohol from another country, and the guy told Sora that Asuka likes alcohol from the Republic of Eldo. All the adventurers invited Sora to drink with them, because he became one of them. It helped Sora make new friends, and so Sora realized that now he has something like his own courier department. A note came to the guy's name, in which he was asked if he could deliver groceries for them. The guild started receiving orders specifically for him. Sora announced the commands to open the status. The guy realized that it could be opened just by thinking. A status bar appeared in front of him. The guy was delighted because he raised his level again. His knowledge of the status bar has also grown. The more Sora walks, the higher his level becomes, and the assessment skill grows from application. The indicators and the number of skill points grow according to the same principle. Sora saw that he had 15 points. He thought that would be enough for him. He decided to take a new skill. The following skills were available to the guy to study: assessment blocking, night vision, body strengthening, healing magic, magical manipulation, detection, swordsmanship. Sora thought that the detection skill sounded good too. He didn't understand what grade blocking was. Sora decided that it would be better for him to keep his points, since he couldn't choose a skill. Sora left the hotel and was met by the hostess there. She asked the guy that he was having a good day today. Sora replied that yes, it is. Today was the guy's day when he would leave the city. The guy had learned skills: Level 3 assessment, detection, body strengthening, simple magic and magic manipulation of the first level. Sora chose 4 skills for himself. Detection allows you to feel someone else's presence. Strengthening the body increases strength, endurance, and agility with each level. Simple magic allows you to use such simple magic as purification or fire. Magic manipulation allows you to use mana effectively. As it turned out, skill points can be used to increase the level of acquired skills. But so far, Sora is successfully pumping them using. Sora realized that he needed to try out simple magic. He used purification magic. In the same second, all the week-old dirt from the guy's clothes disappeared. He was very happy about it because it was fresh. Sora headed to the Adventurers Guild. Makaru asked the guy that he would be picking plants. She said it was his first order outside the city. She asked the guy to try his best in this case. Makaru asked Sora if his equipment allowed him to complete tasks. Sora thought about it because he had wanted this order since yesterday. Makaru told the guy that there were scary dark forests outside, full of monsters like wolves and goblins. Therefore, she advised the guy to get good equipment. Sora replied that he would buy something. But then the guy was hailed by Siphon and asked that he had problems with equipment. The man told the guy that if he wanted to, he could show him one place. And so Siphon and Sora went there. Siphon told the guy when they entered the building that the owner of this place was a bit rude, but his equipment was good. Siphon greeted the owner. It was a man who was smoking a pipe. Sora looked around and thought that there were so many different weapons. Siphon told the owner that this small one goes outside the city, so it will need to be prepared for such an event. Sora tensed up, and the store owner asked the guy what he could do. Sora replied that He didn't really know how to do anything, but he would like a sword or something else. The owner thought about it and asked the guy to weigh the sword he was pointing at. Sora agreed. Sora approached him and thought that he was too thin and shallow. This is the first time he will pick up a real sword. The guy picked it up and thought it was unexpectedly heavy. Sora absurdly swung his sword. The owner told him it was squalor. The guy was upset about it. The man said he had nothing more to say. Newcomers like him shouldn't leave the city at all. And if he really needs to do this, then he needs to take a muscular friend with him. The owner said that the only weapon that would suit him was a knife. Sora, in upset feelings, asked the man that he was just giving him a knife. But the owner just asked the guy not to mess with it. Siphon told Sora that all people start with this. He advised the guy to just train and raise his level. Sora remembered about his level and said the command to open a status. A status bar opened in front of the guy and his skills indicated swordsmanship. Sora thought he knew what he needed to know. This is swordsmanship. The guy decided to learn it right now. Sora's body was covered with magical energy, and after a second, everything stopped. He was surprised to think that this was all. Sora turned to the shopkeeper and asked him if he could try this sword. But the owner called the guy a fool. He said he didn't care. He could even buy it if he wanted to. Sora took the sword in his hands and abruptly lifted it up. He began to swing the sword as if it was not the second time in his life that he had held such a weapon in his hands. Everyone looked at the guy in surprise, who himself was surprised by his new abilities. Sora asked the owner how he liked his technique. The owner asked the guy that he only needed a gun. Sora replied that he also needed armor. He had a budget of 1 gold coin. The owner got up from the counter and walked away from the guys. He asked Sora to wait for him there. Sora turned to Siphon and asked him why he had angered the owner. But Siphon replied that no, on the contrary. A moment later, the owner came to the guys with the armor in his hands. He put it on the table for Sora to read. The owner said that there was a sword, a breastplate, a knife, rations, bracers. Oh, it would do for such a strong man. Siphon tensed up and said that it was the sword of the Holy Kingdom. This is a huge rarity. Sora was very surprised and thought it was very cool. The owner said that it was roughly sharpened, but the shape itself is good. He thinks this sword will be perfect for a guy. The man asked the guy what kind of fashion it was to joke about old people. He needed to show his strength right away. The owner added that the breastplate is made of dragon skin, so he can safely wear it under a cape. The owner decided to support Sora one last time and asked him to break up everything there. Sora tuned in and agreed with the owner. Sora and Siphon went back and the guy said that he was so cool. He thanked Siphon for showing him the place. Siphon replied to the guy that he now had a beer. He decided to go to a training session with his group and wished Sora good luck. The guys said goodbye to each other. Sora stopped at the gate that leads outside the city and thought about it. This is the first time a guy will pass through this gate in order to leave the royal capital. He asked nature to wait for him. The guard turned to Sora and asked that he was going outside. Then he needs to show the ID. Sora showed the guard his card and thought that now he is a real adventurer, so he needs to behave coolly. The guard scanned Sora's card and returned it back to the guy, saying that everything was fine and he could take it back. Sora looked at the guard intently and thanked him, but the guard laughed and asked the guy to relax. He advised Sora to be careful with monsters and poisonous plants there. The guard gave the command to open the gate for them, and right in front of the guy, the gate began to slowly open. Sora thought hopefully that he would finally leave the capital. The guy had an incredible view of the mountains. Sora saw the bright sunlight and smelled the scent of the warm wind. On his belt was a sword and a full set of new hope. The guy climbed the hill and thought that in front of him was a whole new world filled with adventures. He smiled happily and sat down on the grass. The guy said that he was still a little tired of running. It looks like his walking skill only works on walking. Sora lay down in the grass and happily decided to rest. His quest for today was to collect herbs. It takes about an hour to walk from the capital to the gathering place. The medicinal herbs that Sora needs are used for potions. The guy thought that since his experience is limited exclusively to courier delivery, he is experiencing a certain excitement. And if the card in his hands wasn't lying, then Sora was already close to the right place. The guy looked at the plants and thought that there were so many different herbs, but he did not understand which of them were medicinal. Sora remembered his skills and thought that they should work. Sora applied his assessment skill to the plants. There were many medicinal herbs in front of him with normal, good, or excellent quality, as well as full moon grass and fake medicinal herb. Sora picked one of the herbs of good quality and said that this way the assessment shows not only the appearance, but also the quality. It was the perfect skill for such a quest. He became practically a pro at collecting grass. Sora has heard that good quality herbs make the best potions. The guy decided to use his assessment skill and choose only those herbs that were the best in quality. Sora saw that there were a whole bunch of such herbs there. He was very happy about it. The guy remembered that the full moon grass and mana were in another order. But still, he decided to collect them while he was there. Meanwhile, 1 hour had passed and Sora had collected a large bag of herbs. He decided that this would be enough for him. But now his back is aching terribly. Sora opened his status panel and saw that his assessment and body strengthening skills had gained a new level. The assessment skill had gained the 4th level, and body strengthening had gained the 2nd level. The guy thinks it's because he used the grading skill while he was picking grass. Suddenly, Sora heard that behind him, right out of the bushes, someone made terrible noises. The guy turned around and thought that he had forgotten to turn on the detection skill. Sora grabbed his sword and asked the one in the bushes who was there. An animal that slightly resembled a rabbit jumped out of the bushes to the guy. The guy was very surprised by this and did not understand what was happening. He thought it was the cutest creature in the world, but the creature got upset and started making sad noises. The guy asked him what happened to him. Sora assumed that the creature was hungry. The guy opened his backpack and asked the creature to wait a second. He was sure that he had rations in his backpack, and he took it out. Sora asked the creature if he wanted a piece of ration. The creature devoured the ration in one bite. Sora was very touched and said that he eats so sweetly. The guy began to observe the creature. The creature tried to stay in a good mood for a second, but immediately became upset. Sora tensed up and asked the creature what was wrong with him. The guy decided to try the ration himself and said that it tasted so terrible. Sora apologized to the creature for sharing such nastiness with him. After all, he did not know that pike had such a taste. But before the guy could finish, the creature took off. The guy was very surprised and thought that it was flying. The creature began to circle around Sora, and the guy thought that it wanted to say that he was all right. The guy laughed and thanked the creature. Suddenly, the creature landed on his head and sat down comfortably. The guy turned to the creature and asked what he wanted to go with him. The creature made it clear that yes, he wanted to go with Sora. The guy was touched and thought he was so cute. Sora decided that yes, they were going together now, and the creature was very happy about it. Sora introduced himself to the creature and told him that he hoped they would get along. Suddenly, the guy had an unusual feeling that he had never felt before. The guy realized that this is how his detection skill works. Sora saw that 6 objects were approaching him from the south. Sora stood up in a stupor and thought that here they were coming. He was very scared and the guy decided that he needed to run. Suddenly, people and several creatures rushed right in front of the guy. The girls tried to fight the monsters and destroy them. The white wolves rushed straight towards the girls, leading them to a dead end. It was obvious from the girls that they were very tense and scared. Sora immediately realized that these girls were attacked by wolves. These girls were completely surrounded by wolves and tried their best to deal with the monsters. There were so many monsters that they couldn't cope. Sora stood right in front of them and thought that the girls were there and they were fighting the wolves themselves. He examined the clothes of these girls and thought that their equipment looked like they were adventurers. The guy also noticed that they were all wounded. One of the girls turned to her friend Chris and asked her to step back. Sora noticed that one of the girls had 2 swords, but she keeps the wolf at bay with just one hand. This surprised the guy very much. And the second girl was most likely a magician, but she looked very exhausted as she did not actively participate in the battle. The guy thought that in the main hall of the guild he had read about the wolves of this world. They are very fast, but if you properly control their mobility, then everything will work out. Sora noticed that the first girl was quite fast in striking at the wolves, but there were so many of them that she still couldn't cope. The guy realized that they definitely have problems. Sora looked at the girls and thought it was painful for him to look at it. He understood that due to exhaustion, they simply would not be able to cope with these monsters. Although the girl who had the sword protects the magician, but their death is just a matter of time. Sora was faced with a choice of what to do. If he tries to help these exhausted girls, then he himself can die from the tenacious llamas of the white wolves. Sora remembered that he had just never fought in his 15 years. What could he do now? Sora grabbed his sword and decided that now he definitely had to help these girls. One of the white wolves once again attacked the girl with 2 swords. She tried to defend herself with her weapon and held 2 swords in front of her. But the white wolf's blow was so strong that he just made the girl lose 1 sword. She was very scared of it. He fell right behind the girls and the wolves, so they wouldn't have been able to get him. The girl was confused about what to do next and how to deal with the wolves on her own. But suddenly, she noticed another danger. 2 wolves attacked the girls right away. They were terrified of what was happening. Sora was standing and watching the girls at that moment. He thought it was crap. His whole body froze, and his heart began to beat several times faster. One of the wolves, who was already very close to the girls, was struck by a sword. The weapon pierced through the mouth of the white wolf. Because of this, he could not attack the girls. The girls themselves were puzzled and did not understand what had happened. A smile appeared on Sora's face that he managed to plunge his sword into the monster's mouth. The wolf fell to the ground, immobilized. Sora's eyes widened, and he realized that he had just killed the white wolf himself. One of the girls turned abruptly and looked at the man who had saved them. But then she turned back to the monsters, and with one movement of the sword struck at 2 wolves at once. She cut their bodies in 2. When the white wolf was already very close to the girl, she took a step aside. Because of this, the wolf rushed past her. The girl turned to Sora and apologized to him. She said that the wolf was on him, and so the white wolf rushed straight towards the guy. Sora was stunned and thought that this was just madness. He could die right now. Sora couldn't understand that he needed to fight this white wolf right now. But he had thrown the sword. The wolf was getting closer and closer, and his panic grew and grew. Sora turned his gaze to the side and noticed the girl's sword, which was lying not so far away. The guy remembered that it was one of her 2 swords. Sora abruptly leaned to the side and reached for his sword, but the wolf was already very close. The guy realized that he had only a few seconds left. Nabawesi. Either he grabs the sword and strikes, or he dies. Sora managed to react and he plunged the sword right into his belly. The guy's hands began to tremble, and he himself was covered with tremors. Sora couldn't believe what he had done. The guy was horrified to think that he had managed to defeat the white wolves and help those girls who were in trouble. The girls immediately rushed towards the litter. The guy was exhausted. He couldn't believe what had happened to him. The girls were delighted with Sora for saving them, and they wanted to thank him. The girl with 2 swords held out her hand to the guy and told him that the 2 of them were alive, only thanks to his help. The girl thanked the guy for his support. Her friend, the magician, was exhausted and told the guy that he had saved them. Sora was also very tense after the whole situation. The girl held out her hand to the guy, and he held out his hand to her in return. A warrior with 2 swords helped Sora get up from the ground. The girl introduced herself and said that her name was Rurika. Now they will be acquainted. The magician girl said her name was Chris. Sora also introduced himself to the girls, and Chris and Rurika smiled sweetly at the guy in response. Rurika was full of strength even after such a battle, and she suggested that the guy now start butchering wolves before they rot. Sora looked at the girls in disbelief. He had never been involved in butchering animals, and it was new to him. So Rurika told Sora that they were starting to butcher the wolves. Rurika was the first to start butchering the white wolf. She was completely calm and confident in her actions. But the girl looked at the guy and saw that he began to feel very bad right after she ripped open the wolf's belly. Rurika asked the guy what was wrong with him. Sora apologized to the girl and replied that he had only recently become an adventurer, so he was not used to this yet. Rurika asked the guy what it meant that he was having his first fight now, and he immediately dealt with 2 wolves. Sora thought about it and replied that it was just his luck. But still, Sora's hands were still shaking very much, and he was very worried. The guy had killed a real living creature, so he couldn't handle it so easily. But suddenly, his emotional state changed dramatically, and he began to laugh ominously. Sora wondered what had just happened to him. He suggested that it might be admiration. The guy realized that this was the feeling he had experienced when he killed the white wolf. After all, the guy, without realizing it, threw the sword towards the beast. Sora was slightly upset and thought about the fact that it was not like him at all. The guy couldn't understand what was happening to him now and why he was acting like this. Rurika called out to Sora and asked him to think less about it. She offered to show the guy how to properly carve an animal carcass. Rurika explained that monster meat costs a lot of money, so it is very profitable for them. Chris, with the last of her strength, approached Rurika and offered her help. because Sora had never done this. But Rurika told her that no, she was very tired, and she needed to go and have a good rest now. Rurika started telling the guy that butchering monsters is a very important part of being an adventurer. Therefore, the guy will need to try very hard now. Sora agreed with her and tried to tune in to work. The girl said that, first of all, the guy would need to extract all the organs. Sora thought that while Rurika was teaching him how to carve an animal carcass, they started talking about different terms. The girl then told the guy that Rurika and Chris are a duo of D-rank adventurers, and today they had an order to collect honey from killer bees. But when the girls approached the hive, they noticed a pack of white wolves there. Then Chris got into a fight with monsters, and they managed to use magic to avoid most of the wolves. But Chris wouldn't have enough mana for all the animals. Rurika recalled this moment of her journey with sorrow, and she was still very tense. While the guys were butchering the wolves, Rurika said that she was very interested in what kind of penalty they would receive for failing to order honey. At that moment, Sora thought that now that he had calmed down, he noticed the clothes that Rurik was wearing. The guy thought that she was kind of his age, but the guy couldn't figure out if there were too many exposed areas of clothing. Rurika noticed that Sora was looking at the girl's clothes very closely, and she asked the guy where he was staring. Sora immediately started to get nervous, and he turned his head away from the girl. The guy told her that no, he wasn't looking at anything or anywhere. Rurika smiled sweetly at the guy and got very close to him. This confused Sora very much, and he blushed all over. The guy turned away from the girl, and Rurika asked Sora what was wrong with him. Sora awkwardly replied that no, nothing had happened. The guy began to stick his knife very actively into the carcass of the white wolf, and he tried to set himself up to think that he was not thinking about Rurik. And he doesn't think about anything at all. Chris was also watching the guy and thought it was very interesting to her. At that moment, Rurika took out one of the organs from the white wolf's body and turned to Sora. She told him that it was a magic stone that was usually located somewhere near the heart. This part of the animal is worth a lot. Sora looked at this part of the wolf and felt sick again. He clutched his mouth and turned pale. Rurika noticed this and asked the guy how he felt, but Sora could no longer answer her. After a while, the guys laid out the parts of the white wolves they managed to get. On the right were Rurika's results, very neatly cut out, and on the left were the results of Sora, which were even hard to look at. Sora was in despair at the results he had achieved. The guy got upset and said he was just trash. But Rurika was positive as always, and she replied to the guy that everything was fine. Everyone needs practice, and over time he will get better and better. Rurika told the guy that now all that remains is to put all the organs in a bag. Suddenly Sora decided to take the initiative and asked the girl if he could do it himself. Rurika and Chris looked at the guy questioningly. Sora applied his cleaning skill. Everything around the guy began to be cleaned, as well as the girl's clothes from animal blood and dirt stains. Rurika and Chris were very surprised that in a matter of seconds he had dealt with all this dirt. Sora smiled sweetly at the girls and said that everything was ready now. They're all clean. Rurika said admiringly that all the dirt had disappeared from their clothes. The two girls thanked the guy for this. Rurika was delighted that Sora could use the cleaning skill. It was just incredible for her, because few people can do that. Sora was a little embarrassed and asked Rurika if she was telling the truth. Sora thought about how he didn't even know that his purification skill was such a rare magic among humans. He thinks it would be better for him to keep quiet about her. Meanwhile, the guys started collecting things. Sora tied all their things on his backpack. Rurika was very surprised that the guy managed to put all their things in one place. She asked the guy if he was sure that he wanted to take it all by himself and carry it on his back. Sora replied that yes, it doesn't cause any problems for him if it's his luggage. Sora immediately picked up the backpack with ease and immediately threw it on his back. He told the girls that it was time for him to go to the capital now. Sora headed towards the city and suddenly he remembered that he had his new friend. The guy turned back and tried to see him among the grass. Sora realized that he was nowhere there, which means that he had gone somewhere. Sora turned his head towards the capital and thought that even despite all the difficulties he had encountered, his first foray out of the city had been quite successful. The girls went with the guy, and Sora thought that the way back was so peaceful. After a while, Sora and the girls arrived in the capital, and they immediately headed to the Adventurers Guild. There they were greeted by a joyful Mikaru, who greeted Rurika and Chris, but then she noticed that Sora had come with them. Rurika replied that yes, he returned with them. The girl said that they bumped into each other on the order. Rurika dumped all their catch on Mikar's table and said that they wanted to sell this wolf meat. Mikaru was very surprised to see the mountain of meat and said that they had got so much of it. The girl began to disassemble the bags of meat and began to inspect the catch of litter. Mikaru asked the guys what this bag was for recycling. Since they brought a lot of meat, they disposed of this garbage for free. As soon as Sora heard about the garbage, he immediately tensed up. All the girls looked at the surprise guy. Rurika tried to support him, and Mikaru realized that this was part of the guy. Sora also decided to dump a large bag with his catch on Mikaru's table, and Mikaru said that they also found the large pile of medicinal herbs. The girl was delighted with the fulfillment of their orders. Sora thought that he wasn't used to everything yet. Meanwhile, Mikaru put all the meat on the cart and said that they were done with that. Mikaru asked the girls what was going on with the order for the Killer Bee Sword. Rurika and Chris were immediately very upset, and they apologized to Mikaru. The girls told the receptionist that they could not get honey. Rurika said that the reason was because there were wolves there, and because of that they were unable to complete the order. Everyone in the guild immediately turned towards the girls and gasped in surprise. At that moment, Sora thought about what all the fuss was about. A man with a monocle walked towards the guys. Mikaru was surprised when she saw the guild master. The man turned to Rurika and clarified with her that they were telling the truth, that the monsters were right outside the royal capital. Sora and the girls tensed up. The guild master started shouting that wolves had never been seen in that forest, so that was the place for beginners. The man announced that he was holding an urgent meeting for which all the heads of the squad of rank B and above were invited. Everyone in the guild looked at the master. The guild master turned to Mikaru and told her to notify the other guilds and the castle itself of what had happened. The girl accepted the order. The guild master looked at the guys and asked them to be careful when they go outside. A moment later, the guys went outside the guild. Sora turned to the girls and told them that it all sounded so important. Rurika replied that yes, she had no idea that it would cause such a ruckus. But then a smile appeared on the girl's face, and she said that she was glad that they were able to sell the meat of wolves. Sora held his meat in his hands and told the girls that he could not accept half of the payment, because Mikaru had not bought what he had cut. But Rurika replied to the guy that everything was fine. He's beaten half the wolves, so he definitely deserves to be paid. Rurika asked the guy if he would like to go to dinner with them. She would like to discuss something with him. The girl said that there is a restaurant nearby that cooks from what he brings himself. The girl suggested that Sora go and bring them his pieces of meat. Sora asked what was there and what was there. He gladly agreed to this. The guys said goodbye to each other, and Rurika said that they would go change their clothes. The guys agreed to meet at the same place tonight. When the girls moved away from the guy, Rurika turned to Chris and asked her why they were silent. The girl assumed that she liked him. Suddenly, Chris took off and ran away from Rurika. The girl tried to stop Chris, but she did not plan to return to Rurika. Sora watched the girls go and wondered what they were talking about. It seemed to him that they were really close to each other. The guy assumed that they had their own squad. Sora kept hoping that his stats would get better, and Sora wondered if that was the case, if he could be in the same squad with them. Sora thought about it and decided to go to the hotel. That evening, the guys met again and headed to the restaurant. Sora saw a lot of dishes and asked the girls that the chefs had cooked it all from his meat. Rurika replied that the local chef was just a god of cooking. Chris supported her and said that they sometimes go to this place. Chris looked at how Sora was eating, and she wanted to tell him something. But in the end, she didn't say anything. Rurika noticed the girl's shyness. Rurika tasted the dish and said it tasted so good to her. Sora also supported her and said that the boss had turned his garbage into something beautiful. The guy thought that he sounded like a restaurant critic now. Rurika laughed and said she was glad he liked the dishes. The girl asked Sora that he did not know about this place because he was not from this country. Sora finished chewing and replied that he could say that. It's so far away that the name of the country won't tell them anything. Rurika asked the guy why he decided to become an adventurer. Sora replied that everything had happened in his life that contributed to this. But in this world, he wants to get around everything. This is his main dream. The girls looked at the guy in surprise. Chris said he had a wonderful job. Rurika said that if so, then they also travel to different countries. Therefore, they will stay there a little longer. The girls looked at each other and decided to ask the guy something. The girls asked Sora if he would like to join their squad. The guy asked the girls in surprise what was in their squad. Sora said that he could not even dream of such a thing. But he only has E rank. He will turn out to be a simple burden to them. Sora added that he was confident that they could find adventurers much stronger than him. Rurika replied that yes, but she knows that they have only known each other for one day. But he seemed very honest to the girls. He wasn't trying to appear stronger than he really was. And Sora doesn't hide if she needs to act. Rurika said that was why he could be called an honest man. Anyway, they would like to travel with him. Chris interrupted Rurika and said that she wanted to say these words. Sora thanked the girls and told them that since they thought so. Sora jumped off the table and asked the girls to take care of him. Rurika laughed and asked in return to take care of them too. Sora asked the girls what they said about traveling. The guy asked the girls where they were from. Rurika replied that they were from the Eldo Republic. The girl thinks that this was not the best place for their life. Sora thought about the Republic of Eldo. He read in the audience that this is one of the 7 countries of this world. And according to the books he read in the guild, the world is divided into 7 countries. The staunch supporters of human supremacy who actively impose their xenophobia are the Borshal Empire. Less extreme than Borshal, but partially supporting the superiority of humans, is the Kingdom of Elysia. A multiracial state that exists due to mutual respect is the Republic of Eldo. There is also a beast kingdom that is ruled by the King of Beasts. There is a holy kingdom of ladies Forberchen in waiting. These are devout followers of their goddess. The magical people of Effa are a society of great researchers and magicians, and the royal Refle are dragon fans. 7 great countries have lived in peace for a long time. 10 years ago, the Borshal Republic declared war on the Eldo Republic. That war took over all 7 countries, and then the world was completely exhausted by the war. But the nuns of the Holy Kingdom of Fraulein declared that their goddess had addressed them with such a message that the demon king had risen. In order to fight back against the armies of monsters, the 7 powers declared a truce. Even now, monsters are appearing in the dark forest in order to continue attacking the 2 neighboring countries. Sora kept thinking that the girls were from the Elder Republic. The guy asked them that it was all because of the war. Rurika replied that their village had been destroyed, and in order to survive, they had to travel and look for work. The guy tensed up and thought that they had been through so much, each time in a new country. It was very surprising for him. Sora turned to the girls and told them that if he could help them in any way, then he would do everything in his power. Rurika and Chris liked these words very much, and they smiled sweetly at the guy. The girls thanked Sora for his support. Rurika turned to Sora and asked the guy if he had any plans for tomorrow. Sora thought that he just wanted to make some deliveries around the city, but he replied to the girls that he was free. Rurika said he was wonderful. The girl said that there was something she would like to do with him. The girl's face became sly. This began to worry Sora very much, and he asked the girl what she was talking about. After the guys had eaten, they dispersed. The next day, everyone came to the Adventurers Guild. There in the Great Hall stood Sora and Rurika with 2 swords. There were a lot of people standing around them shouting for Rurika to kill the kid, and someone put 3 copper coins on the girl. Rurika's face was such that she was ready to destroy everything around her. This scared the guy very much, and he asked the girl what she was up to. Rurika replied that she kept thinking about the very battle with the wolves where they met. The girl recalled how he moved during the battle. He did it like an amateur, not even thinking where exactly to hit the wolf. Sora got even more excited and thought that she was right. He only has the skill of wielding a weapon. The guy started shaking violently and assumed that they were going to fight now. Rurika told Sora that if they had a duel now, then it would be good for all of them. Sora tried to stop the girl and get through to her, but Rurika replied that now was not the time to chat. Rurika jumped off the seat and headed towards the guy. Rurika jumped up to attack the guy from the air, and Sora himself thought the trouble was happening to him now. Rurika decided to arrange a sudden combat training for the guy. She attacked the guy, but Sora managed to prevent the girl's blow by holding the sword in front of him. The guy was trying to hold the line with all his might, even though it was one of his first battles. Rurika was full of strength to strike at the guy endlessly. She told Sora to finally start attacking the girl, because he can't just defend himself like that. But Sora did not respond to her with words or retaliatory blows, because he was only trying to keep up with watching Rurika's unsteady movements. Sora thought that she had swung 2 swords at once, but still the guy managed to notice that the girl's back was open. Sora aimed his sword straight at the girl to strike back at her. The guy thought that with his swordsmanship, his sword was moving exactly where he wanted it to go. and so Rurika swung at the guy with one sword. But the girl brought the second sword behind her back, which did not allow the guy to strike at her body. Sora was very surprised by the girl's quick wit, but he was still upset that his plan didn't work out. Sora was puzzled by this outcome of the battle, and thought that instead of attacking the guy with two hands, as she had planned at first, Rurika used one to defend herself. Rurika decided to neutralize her opponent. She made a blow that allowed her to grab the guy's sword and throw it up. Sora's sword made several circles in the air and rushed down. A moment later, the guy's sword fell to the floor behind him. Sora was unarmed. All the people in the hall were surprised at how the events of this battle unfolded. Out of desperation, Sora fell to the floor and became upset. He thought about how incredible it was. He realized that this was the D rank level. Sora now realized for sure that Rurika was very strong. Rurika turned to Sora and told him that he had good enough speed, but she counted all his movements. The girl praised the guy's attempt to stab her in the back, but she added that the guy's strange movements gave him away. Rurika appreciated the guy's fight and said that he fought her pretty well. Suddenly, the guy's friend, Ciel, flew past Rurika. The guy's eyes widened in an instant, because he did not expect to see him there. Sora turned to the creature and said that he was the thing from the forest. Rurika looked at the guy questioningly and asked him what he was saying. But Sora himself realized that it seemed to him that only he could see Ciel. Ciel quickly flew right up to the guy's face, and Sora screamed a little. Sora turned to Ciel and asked the creature what he was worried about. Ciel made it clear that this was the case. Suddenly, Ciel disappeared from the guy's field of vision in an instant. Sora was very surprised by this. Sora sat on the floor and shook his head in different directions to look for Ciel. At that moment, Chris approached Rurika and asked her not to hit the guy so hard anymore. Rurika wanted to reply that she had not planned to bring it to this. The girl really hoped that everything would be fine with Sora. The girl turned to the guy and asked him if he was okay. Rurika asked the guy that if he didn't mind, how about taking an order for the whole squad as a training session. At that moment, Siphon came up to Rurika and asked the girl what she wanted to ruin for her. The girl sweetly replied that it was just combat training. Sora thought that Siphon was saving him. After a while, the girls and Sora came up to a huge task board. Rurika told Sora that if he wanted to go around the world, he had to become stronger. Hiking can be very dangerous for them. Sora asked the girl in surprise what she was saying about the hike. Rurika was surprised to ask the guy that he had never set up camp before. Sora got excited and replied to the girl that he had never actually done this. The guy thought about what awaits him to spend the night in the country, but he had never done such a thing, so the guy was very excited. Rurika looked at the tasks and said that in that case, it would take 3 days to get from the city to the place where the goblins live. It will be just the perfect order for the first hike. The girl told Sora that he would be able to improve his sword skills. Sora replied to Rurika that he was glad, but they were of a higher rank than this garbage order. Rurika replied to the guy to make him think that this was their gratitude for helping them in the forest back then. And besides, there was a fairly high reward for this order. Sora was pleased with this and thanked the girls for their help and support. Rurika turned back to Sora and showed him the sheet. The girl told the guy to pay attention to the fact that when accepting long-distance orders, such as this one, they will spend quite a lot of time on the road. The girl said that it would take them 3 days to get to the village of rhinos, and then they would have to walk back for another 3 days. Therefore, they now had to prepare food and medicine supplies for 6 days. Rurika added that since the reward for this order is quite high, they will be able to cover these costs. The girl tried to convey to the guy that it was extremely important for them to think about such things. The girl asked the guy to go to the store and buy everything he needed, and tomorrow they will be on their way. Sora smiled back at the girls. The guy was thrilled that they were going camping, and Sora thought it was hard for him to believe it, but listening to all this was fun. Meanwhile, Sora went to Ollie's hotel. There was a small bag next to his bed, with all the supplies and medicines that he would need on the road. Sora lay on the bed and thought that tomorrow they would all go on the road together. The guy hoped that everything should go fine, because there are 3 of them, but Sora was worried about it anyway. Sora opened his eyes and thought that he couldn't sleep because of all the worries. He feels like a child who is excited before a school trip somewhere. Suddenly, something furry appeared right in front of the guy's face. Sora saw that it was Ciel again, and he exclaimed in fear and surprise. Sora asked the creature that he had flown to him again. He's probably watching him. Sora smiled and thanked Seal for keeping an eye on him. Seal was hovering right above the guy. Sora stretched his hands up to the creature and asked Shill that he could hear him. Sora tried to touch the creature, but suddenly his hand fell right through Ciel. The creature began to get nervous. Sora was very surprised by this, and the guy thought that his hand just went through his body. Seal pouted and he started swinging from side to side. Seal continued to sulk and turned away from Sora. The guy apologized to the creature. Sora tried to explain to Seal that he just looked so soft, and that's why the guy wanted to touch him. Still, Sora confessed to Seal that he was glad to see him now. The guy's words began to slur, and he slowly closed his eyes. Sora fell asleep, and Seal carefully descended from the air and lay down right next to the guy. And so they both fell asleep next to each other. The best medicine is a friend he can cuddle with. And so began that long-awaited Sora campaign with the girls. They met each other at the gate, and Ruruka looked up at the sky. The girl said that it was such a beautiful morning to go hiking. All of Ruruka and Chris's belongings were in the same backpack on the guy's back. But Sora still couldn't forget his night. The guy remembered Ciel and thought that when he woke up in the morning, this cute animal was not with him. The guy really wanted to meet this creature again. The guards saw that people had approached the exit from the city and asked them for their IDs. The guys gave the guard their cards, and he began to study them. The guard read that there were 2 D rank and 1 E rank among the guys. He decided to warn the guys, and told them that he thought they already knew what had recently happened in this forest. He asked them to be careful. The guys confidently replied to the guard that yes, they know this and will try to be careful. They were not afraid of monsters outside the city. The guard looked at the guys and asked them to have fun there. And finally, he wished the guys good luck. The adventurers set off on a campaign with the full support of the guard. Meanwhile, Sora was looking at the map and thought that their journey to the village would take 3 days. And maybe it's because of the appearance of monsters at the herb gathering place. But now the guys had been on the road for 2 hours, and during that time they had not met a single person. The guys were walking along a small path, and there were huge fields around them. Sora saw the plants on the way along the road and stopped near them. Sora thought that there was a field of fluffy grass right in front of him. He really wanted to just jump into it. Sora looked at the girls and thought that they had gone to this order for him, so he could not waste their time on such trifles. Ruruka noticed that Sora was staring at the field of plants. She realized what Sora wanted to do and immediately jumped into a fluffy field. The girl started spinning there, and Chris and Sora were very surprised how unexpectedly she did it. But Ruruka was really happy lying in the grass. The girl turned to the guys and said that they definitely should try it. It was so great for her. Sora was very happy, and of course he wanted to do it. But Chris looked at Ruruka incredulously. Despite this, in a second 3 guys were already lying in this fluffy grass. They looked up and Sora said that yes. There was such a beautiful sky above them. Satisfied, Ruruka stretched and said that it was just a wonderful day, and they were so lucky to go camping today. But suddenly Ruruka disappeared from the field of view of the guys because she rolled behind a small hillock. The girl shouted to the guys that she was falling, and according to the sounds of Ruruka, she fell into some kind of swamp. A second later, she peeked out from behind the mound, and the girl was all dirty. She told the guys that she was in a lot of pain. Sora and Chris tensed when they saw Ruruka. Ruruka said she was very embarrassed that the guys saw her like this. But Sora immediately set about correcting the situation. He applied his cleaning skill, and in a moment, all of Ruruka's dirty things were clean. Chris smiled sweetly and looked at the guys. But still, she told Sora that it was such a reckless waste of mana. Sora decided to check his stats by opening the status window and saw that yes, indeed. In the process, the guy consumes MP when he uses simple magic. He was puzzled by this fact. The guy already had skills such as simple magic, assessment, detection, body strengthening, and swordsmanship in his arsenal. Sora thought that after he mastered these few skills, he came to the conclusion that there are different types of skills. These are the kinds of skills that MP uses. Skills that use SP and skills that don't use anything at all. When using simple magic, Sora spends MP. Since skills such as assessment and perception are active skills, they consume SP when he uses them. And body strengthening and swordsmanship are passive skills, and therefore they do not use MP or SP. The guy thinks MP is for magical skills, and SP is more suitable for things that need stamina or concentration. In short, the SP level is also important. Sora also thought that if you try to use the skill, After spending the entire MP or SP scale, then the person simply loses consciousness. The guy personally tested it on himself. But there is still one small detail. When Sora walks, his skills don't waste SP. Sora thought that was why he kept detection active all the time. The guy thinks that SP is something like an endurance scale. And while walking, he doesn't get tired at all. Although as Sora uses 2 or more skills at the same time, the SP will still start to be consumed. For example, in the case of using detection and evaluation skills. But anyway, it was useful for Sora. The guy was delighted that he had exactly such skills. Sora thought that this skill was really great. He's just a miracle. At that moment, Rurika noticed several beautiful butterflies flying over the grass. She began to look at them with admiration and said what they had here. The girl said they were so bright. She asked Sora and Chris about the fact that they were butterflies. Sora decided to check it out and used his assessment skill. Information appeared in front of him that it was a flying grass insect, a plant native to their kingdom of Elysia that resembles an insect but is actually a plant. In the center of this plant is fragrant honey, which can be sucked through a tube. The petals, which resemble wings, are also edible. Sora was shocked by this information and thought that these were not butterflies but real plants. And they also have honey. The guy really wanted to try this honey. Sora called out to the girls to share it with them. Sora pointed to their object and said that it was not an insect but a plant. He had read about it, and there is honey inside it. The guy asked Rurika and Chris if they would like to try it. Chris thought about what she really wanted, but despite this she blushed and lowered her head. Rurika noticed this and asked Chris that she didn't like sweets. But Rurika adores him. Chris wanted to say something again, but still couldn't. As a result, the guys began to catch this amazing plant. Rurika and Chris did it the first time, but Sora had to run after them. Rurika decided to clarify with Sora once again that he says that you can use this tube and suck out the honey that was inside through it. Sora replied that yes, it is, and the 3 of them began to suck the honey out of the plant. The guy's eyes began to shine because it was an unusual and pleasant taste. Sora said that it is sweet, and he feels the notes of a fruity taste. Rurika said with admiration that it was so great. Due to the fact that it is fresh, she does not feel bitterness at all. And Chris just said that he smells fine. Rurika turned to Sora and asked him if the wing of this plant was edible. The guy replied that he thought it was edible. Rurika told the guys that she thought now was the time to get some rest. And the girl herself decided to cook something from what they caught. Chris thought about it, and Sora was also a little surprised by the girl's idea. This will be their first camping dinner together. The guys were happy to have dinner in nature, and Rurika shouted that they were getting down to business. Sora supported the girl and said that now they would make something delicious. But suddenly Rurika's face changed dramatically, and she said that first they would tear off the wings of this creature, and she plans to make a salad out of them. Sora was confused after these words, and he replied to the girls that despite the fact that they were just plants, he felt that he was doing something wrong. But Rurika and Chris were very calm and began to tear off the wings of the plants. The girls had 3 years of experience in hunting monsters. After a while, the guys finished tearing off the wings, and they got a great salad of grass insects. Sora was the first to try this salad. He chewed the wings of grass insects and told the girls that it was very tasty. Chris and Rurika also began to taste the dish. Sora said that this dish crunched pleasantly, and it had such a fresh and sweet sour taste. The guy decided to compare this dish and realized that it was like a fruit. Rurika and Chris continued to enjoy the salad, and Rurika asked her to stop because it was very tasty. Rurika said she thinks it's better not to even cook this dish. A lot of ideas of dishes arose in the girl's head, and she suggested spreading it on bread or eating it as a main dish. But suddenly, Rurika's eyes widened in fear and she exclaimed, "Oh my God!" A cow appeared right in front of the guys, calmly grazing the grass. Sora applied his assessment skill and was shown the information that it was a black cow. It was a common wild cow species. The belligerent side of Rurik immediately turned on, and she told Chris to get down to business. Chris supported the girl and replied that she understood her. Sora tensed when he saw the girl's attitude towards the cow and looked at them questioningly. The guy thought about what they wanted to do with her. Sora couldn't understand why the girls had such cruelty, but they were already heading towards the cow. Chris began to use her magical abilities, and Rurika rushed upstairs. After a moment, Sora saw that the cow was calmly lying on the grass and sleeping. Chris was gently stroking the cow's hair. At that moment, Ruka held up a small bowl and began to milk the cow to get milk. Sora was discouraged, and he immediately realized that the girls just wanted to get milk from this cow, but not destroy it. He approached the girls and told them that he thought they had decided to kill her. Rurika and Chris laughed at the guy. Rurika decided to explain to the guy that it's not even that killing someone is very bad. The girls had a position that they would not commit murder unless necessary. And Chris agreed with the girl. Ruka added that they only need milk in this situation. She doesn't understand why they have to kill the cow. Sora listened to the girls and replied that he understood everything now. The guys went in search of food again, and after the cow they found some bird eggs. Sora applied an assessment to them and saw that they were transparent bird eggs, or rather, a transparent shell. The guys decided to cook another dish from this. To begin with, they mixed milk and eggs, and then added the nectar of a grass insect. After that, the guys dipped bread into this mixture and left it to infuse like that. While the bread soaked up the mixture, Rurika started mowing the grass, and after that, they dug a hole in this place. In a small hole, the guys built a bonfire, and Sora got a fire there. After that, Sora put the same frying pan that his uncle had given him with a barbecue on the fire and threw oil into it. They took this oil on a camping trip. Sora began to carefully spread the infused bread on the hot oil. And after a while, they got a very appetizing dish, which was called renchi toasts, served with leaves and syrup of a grass insect. Sora sniffed his portion of toast and said that they smelled very good. The guy realized that the other world is very cool, and there are many different new things here. Rurika told Sora that they had just made something that looked like biscuits. The girls made them using honey, milk, and flour. Sora was delighted with the girls' quick wit, and he told them that they were cool. The guys sat down on their prepared clearing and prayed. Each of the guys wished each other a pleasant appetite. In the middle of the day, the blue sky seems to stretch into infinity, creating a feeling of boundless spaciousness. The meadow is swaying under a light stream of breeze, and not far from the guys there was a cute cow that periodically mooed. The guys were in the midst of all this beauty and enjoyed eating the dishes they had prepared. The guys said it was just fine. Sora tasted the dish and said that the sweet and sour leaves and sweet honey are all super together. He really liked it. Ruka agreed with the guy and said that she could not even dream that they would eat something so great and delicious on a regular camping trip. The girls discussed the taste of the dish, and Ruka said that butter with honey is also a thrill. At that moment, Sora noticed that Seal had appeared behind Rurika. The guy was surprised by him and thought that this was the same animal. He carefully, not noticeably for the girls, put his hand behind his back and stretched it out to Ciel. The animal immediately ate what the guy gave him. Sora looked at Ciel and thought he was very cute. Suddenly, Chris noticed the guy and the creature next to him. Sora told the girls that milk, biscuits, and nut tea were very tasty, and the girls agreed with him on this. Chris thought, at that moment, that she also really wanted to talk freely, like Sora and Rurika do. But the girl was very shy, even though they are in the same squad. Rurika looked at Chris and saw her thoughtful expression. Rurika immediately realized what the problem was and thought that she was very shy. Rurika told Sora that she wished she had a magic bag with her that could keep these dishes warm for a while. Sora asked the girl that they had such a thing. Rurika said that she once saw her being sold. It is a highly effective magic bag that keeps food fresh and warm for a while. But in any case, the price of the magic bag was very expensive for her. Rurika turned to Chris and said that she had heard of similar spatial magic. She asked the girl that it was what was inside that bag. Rurika winked at Chris and asked that this was her area of expertise. Chris started to get nervous and awkwardly turned to Rurika. Chris tried to pull herself together, and suddenly she said it wasn't spatial magic. Sora realized that Chris was just shy, but she would be able to finish. Chris started to stutter, and she could no longer say full words. Sora and Rurika looked at the girl, waiting for her answer. But Chris's face flushed sharply, and she looked down. Chris apologized to the guys for not being able to finish. Sora decided to support the girl, and he replied that everything was fine. He makes mistakes all the time. Rurika also wanted to set up the girl, and asked her to repeat it again. Chris hesitated and told the guys that spatial magic is magic that controls space. And then there is its offshoot. This is the magic of storage. A person can say the word storage, and his stake can go to the inventory. The magic of storage literally stops time in order to keep food fresh and always ready to eat. Sora thought about it, But Ruriga was happy for the girl, and she praised her. But Chris continued and said that, however, there are not many users of spatial magic, and she heard that if a person owns it, then even if he does not have any combat abilities, he will be invited to an elite squad. Chris didn't understand why she was so upset. But at the last words, the girl's mood faded, and she spoke them in a half-whisper. Rurika was happy for the girl, and she praised her again. Sora smiled and told Chris that it was convenient enough. He would like to use such magic himself. Chris smiled back at the guy. Sora started thinking about spatial magic and thought that the last time he checked the parameters, this skill was not on his list. The guy had access to grade blocking, night vision, cooking, disassembly, painting, parallel thinking. Sora began to think that if he thought about it that way, he still had skill points. But he still wondered where the skill itself was. Sora turned to Chris and said that when he found out about simple magic, he was just able to use it. The guy was wondering if it was the same for everyone. Chris thought about it. Chris awkwardly replied that, generally speaking, one day he would just learn how to use it. Sora replied to Chris that yes, that's right. Even if he wants to use one magic or another, it all depends on his luck. Chris told him that yes, it was. Chris said that she had heard that there are rare skills that can be learned by reading books, but such books are written in special characters. If a person does not know them, then it will be unrealistic for him to learn something. Sora replied to the girl that now he understood everything. He thanked Chris for sharing the information with him. Sora himself was happy, but Chris was very tense and excited. Sora also began to sweat awkwardly and think about what else to tell Chris. It was a very awkward conversation for him. The guy understood that he would need to change the atmosphere in the group. Suddenly, Sora asked the girls how to stop the incest of mushrooms, and he immediately replied that the phrase was not to argue with his mother. Girls didn't expect this from a guy. They looked at the guy with misunderstanding and awkwardness without answering anything. Sora asked the girls that they didn't understand anything. Meanwhile, the guys had been on their way for a long time. Of course, they take breaks while walking, but because of his skill, he doesn't get tired at all. The guy wondered how much distance they had already traveled. Suddenly, something black appeared behind Sora, forcing the guy down. Sora felt it and abruptly turned back, hoping to see what it was. But there was nothing behind the guy, and he just looked into the distance. This made the guy tense up, and he thought that he clearly felt someone's eyes on him. Rurika noticed the guy's concern and asked him what was the matter and where he was looking so intently. Sora immediately smiled nervously and replied to the girl that everything was fine. It was just nonsense. But Sora thought that he seemed to notice something ever since he learned his detection skill. When the guy was in the royal capital, and even after they went camping, someone was clearly watching him. This bothered Sora a lot, and he couldn't figure out who might need him. Sora suggested that it might be those people from the castle. But still, he did not understand why they would follow him after they themselves had taken and kicked him out. A window appeared in front of Sora, in which he was asked if he would like to spend points in order to learn the skill, blocking assessment. Sora thought about it. The guy thought that now was the time to do it. Sora replied that yes, he wanted to spend the points, and a window appeared in front of him, which indicated that he had a new skill, blocking the assessment of the first level. The guys continued their hike and the day was approaching evening. Rurika told the guys that the sun would set very soon. She asked them how about setting up camp by the tree she was pointing at. Sora was delighted and agreed with Rurika. The guy thought that this would be his first camp. Sora was very excited about it. Rurika suggested to the guys that they cook dinner first. But then the girl's opinion changed, and she said no. The girl decided to share information about her skills with each other first. Rurika thought that this way they would be able to act better in an emergency situation. Rurika suggested to the guys that she tell them first. Her skills are body strengthening and detection. Then I decided to tell Chris. She confusedly shared that she has fire and wind magic. And the girl also remembered that another of her skills is simple magic. Rurika turned to Sora and asked the guy what his skills were. She said that just in case, he doesn't have to talk about skills that he doesn't want to tell them. After all, he and Chris also have skills that they keep secret. Sora thought that now that she had said this, Sora did not expect him to know everything about them. But it was kind of weird for the guy. Sora thought that there were a couple of skills that he had learned, but they were still low level. Therefore, the guy wasn't sure if he could use them in a real fight. For a while, Sora wondered what he should tell the girls. Sora told the girls that his skills were simple magic and carrying. Rurika replied to the guy that she thought so. These are good skills. After a while, the guys started cooking dinner. Rurika cut up the food and told the guys that they were eating plain bread and soup on the way, and they also eat dried meat. Sora asked Rurika what it meant that they ate something that would not spoil and that weighed little. Rurika replied that yes, it is. But their afternoon snack was an exception. After a while, the guys already had everything ready. The guys prayed again and thanked them for the food. Rurika said that there's no variety in this dish and taste. Sora agreed with her. The guy thought that's why spatial magic users are so useful. Meanwhile, night fell, and the guys built a fire again so as not to freeze. Rurika told the guys that the sun had already set. The girl said it was time for them to go to bed. At night, one person should always be on guard. Rurika asked Sora if he thought he could handle it. After all, this was his first time, so they can stay on guard together. Sora confidently replied that he could definitely handle it alone. The guy thought that thanks to his walking skills, he was not tired at all during the day, and his detection skill will definitely be useful to them at night. Sora told the girls that he would be the first to guard the fire and sit on guard. He won't sleep anyway because of the intense excitement. The girls thanked the guy, and Rurika said that then they would leave it to him. Chris apologized to the guy and said they'd better go. The girls waved to the guy and wished him good night. Sora waved back at them. The girls went behind a tree and settled down there. And now Chris had already fallen asleep to the soft crackle of the fire, and Sora remained sitting by the fire. Suddenly, the guy heard Rurika calling out to him. The guy looked at her questioningly, because she still hadn't slept. Rurika excitedly asked the guy if he had a minute. Sora realized that this was a night secret, and because of this, he had a strange feeling. Sora replied that yes, they could talk. Rurika sat down with the guy near the campfire and said that he had done a good job today, especially for the first day. Sora decided to support Rurika in response, and the guy told her that she was doing well too. Rurika winked at the guy and confessed to him that she was a little worried about him and all that. But she still thinks that the worries were unnecessary. Rurika added that the guy, after all, had dreamed of traveling the world all his life. Sora awkwardly thanked the girl for her support in response. Sora confessed to Rurika that it was all thanks to their help, because they have much more experience. Rurika laughed at the guy and thanked Sora. Sora clarified with the girl that they had already been on the road for a couple of years, if he was not mistaken. The guy asked Rurika if she had any stories. The girl thought about what Sora would be interested in. The girl replied that she could tell him about the Imperial Arena. Sora replied in surprise that yes, he would certainly like to hear about her. Rurika said that she was invited there once, but she did not like it there. For her, it was all some kind of show. Sora replied to the girl that he understood her in this. He was sure that this was not the most pleasant experience for a person. Rurika laughed and told Sora that she had many good moments in her story. The girl cited the smiles of her clients around the world as an example. Rurika shared with the guy the thoughts that caught up with her then, that she was so glad that she became a traveler. Sora was very surprised by what the girl said, and he replied to Rurika again that he understood her in this too. The guy remembered the happy faces of his customers when he worked in delivery. Sora added that he would also become a traveler someday, and Sora and Rurika laughed about it. The guys sat around the campfire in silence for a while, and Rurika turned to the guy again. The girl told Sora that she was glad he talked to Chris. Rurika admitted that it was the first time she had seen Chris talking to someone other than her. Rurika was really happy, and she said she was happy for Chris. And she was even more glad that Sora had become friends with her. Rurika was very grateful to the guy for that. But Sora replied to the girl that no, he should have thanked them. After all, he's the only one who has fun camping at all. Rurika admitted that Sora is really a wonderful guy. But suddenly her face changed, and she told the guy that if he hurt Chris, she would kill him. The girl ominously asked if he understood that. Sora tensed and looked at the girl with fear in his eyes. Sora replied to Rurika that yes, he would never dare to harm her in any way. Rurika got up from the ground and replied that it was good. That was all she wanted to talk to him about. Rurika headed towards their sleeping place and wished Sora a good night. Sora agreed and also wished the girl good dreams in response. Meanwhile, everything was quiet on the street, and only the faint crackle of a campfire could be heard in the neighborhood. Sora sat by the fire and looked at it thoughtfully. He remembered Rurika's phrase that if he hurt Chris in any way, she would kill him. The guy laughed nervously. Sora thought that these were his first friends in this world. Therefore, he really wants to protect them and not bring trouble. Sora thought that in Japan he did not have relationships with girls. He was generally more afraid of them. The guy couldn't figure out what to do. Suddenly, Seal appeared right in front of Selcher. He jumped out so suddenly that the guy was scared and screamed. Seal began to roll head over heels on the ground directly towards the fire. When Seal rolled up to the fire, he looked at it carefully and seemed to scream in panic. Seal ran away from the fire in an instant. This scared Sora and he asked Seal if he was okay. Seal started jumping and showing his anger to the guy. Sora chuckled slightly and told Seal that he was glad he was okay. Suddenly, Seal jumped up again and joyfully rushed into the sky. Sora began to follow the animal and asked Seal where he was flying away from him again. Seal showed the guy the beautiful sky above his head. A lot of stars scattered across the sky and it was very beautiful. Sora said admiringly that it was like a fairy tale. He had never seen anything like it in his life. But suddenly Sora was thinking again. The guy thought that, yes, this is his first time working with someone. But even if he doesn't know what to do. But then he stopped the flow of his thoughts and said, "Stop." Sora asked if this was the first time for him. The guy remembered that he had already gone through many trials, difficulties, and joys in this world. Sora decided that he would need to get to know them, but in his own way. He wanted to do it sincerely. Sora understood that he had to get to know his new friends better. And finally, a new day has come and a sunrise in another world. Sora fell asleep in the early morning, and even the bright light of the sun's rays did not wake him up in any way. Suddenly, shadows began to appear on the guy's face. The guy realized that someone had blocked out the sun for him and stood right above him. This made him open his eyes to find out who was standing in front of him. Sora saw that it was Rurika and Chris. The girls wished the guy good morning and smiled sweetly. Sora thought that these were his first good morning wishes in this world. Rurika saw that Sora had woken up and moved away from him. The girls said it was time for them to start baking bread. Chris remained sitting next to Sora and nervously trying to tell him something. The girl stuttered a lot and eventually asked the guy if he would like her to help him wash. Sora thought that, yes, he could use a wash now and he should do it. Suddenly, for no reason at all, Chris pointed her staff directly at the guy's face and poured a stream of water on him. Chris shouted that it was her cleaning skill. Sora smiled and thought that it was unexpected for him, but very refreshing. He immediately woke up after such a wash. The guy thanked Chris for her help, but Chris blushed all over from this and she immediately ran to help Rurika in making bread. And so their fun morning began, surrounded by real friends. Sora thanked the girls for making breakfast. The guys ate and packed all their things. And so they set off again. The guys were very happy about it. Sora remembered that he walks all the time, which means that his indicators should increase. The guy said the command to open the status in a status panel appeared in front of him. Sora thought that he had a new level. But still, the guy understood that it was getting harder and harder for him to raise the level every time. Despite this, he was still glad. Meanwhile, Sora also acquired new skills available for study, such as archery, night vision, painting, cooking, spatial magic, disassembly, parallel thinking. Sora said that he now has spatial magic too. The guy realized that this was the one that Chris had told him about at the time. The guy thought it was magic, which allows you to save food that may soon go bad. Sora was absolutely sure that he definitely needed such a skill. Sora looked at his status bar again and thought that since his grade blocking skill would be difficult to raise in the usual way, the guy decided to use 2 skill points to raise him to the 2nd level. Sora immediately decided that he would definitely need to try a new skill. For example, he decided to do it on his backpack. The guy thought about spatial magic to activate it, and then a window appeared right in front of him. Sora looked at him questioningly. It was written in the window itself that there was not enough level for a spatial magic skill to keep an item of this size. Sora was asked to raise his level and try again. Sora wondered if his item was too big, and this means that the first thing he will need to do is raise his level of spatial magic. Sora decided to save the rest of his rations, and maybe that's how he can level up. Sora thought about using spatial magic one more time, and suddenly the food disappeared from his hands. She was transferred to the storage inventory. Sora thought that he also needed to take parallel thinking and improve recovery. Suddenly Rurika saw that the guy was very puzzled by something. The girl turned to Sora and asked him if everything was fine with him and if he was not lagging behind them. Sora immediately looked away from the status bar and apologized to the girls. Meanwhile, the guy has new skills: spatial magic, parallel thinking, and improved recovery. But despite the fact that the guy's skills were getting more and more, Sora decided to keep it a secret from the girls for now. He thought of doing this until there was a suitable level for this. And so the guy's path continued. He was pretty calm. Periodically, Sora and the girls made stops and had a snack to gain strength. So 2 days passed on their way. At some point, the guys went into the forest, but Ruka followed the map clearly. Sora was very surprised that the village was in the thick of the forest. Rurika told the guys that before they went camping, she made inquiries about the place where they were going, and she found out that the locals are professional lumberjacks. Judging by the map, they will arrive at the place very soon. Meanwhile, the guys came up to the broken fence and everyone tensed up a little. After all, the guys saw in front of them several small houses, a couple of animals, a destroyed fence, and an inscription stating that this is a village of rhinos. Sora tensely asked Rurika and Chris that this was how it should be. Rurika replied that she thought the goblins had done this to the village. Suddenly, a little boy looked out from behind the bushes in front of the guys. It was obvious from the boy that he was very worried. The guy asked the guys that they were adventurers. The guys replied that yes, it is. The boy immediately asked them to follow him into the house. While the boy was running, he called out to the elder and informed him that adventurers had come to their village. Sora, Rurika, and Chris nervously exchanged uncertain glances. But despite their anxiety, they still followed the boy to a small house. The doors to the house were closed when the guys went in, but people could still watch their communication with the elder through the windows, and they couldn't help but take advantage of this opportunity. Sora and the girls entered the house and sat down in the middle of the room on a small carpet. It could be seen from their faces that they were very tense and excited. Suddenly, the elder turned to the guys and asked them for forgiveness. The man was obviously very worried about the situation they were in. Sora and the girls were ready to listen to the man and help him in any way they could. The elder thanked the adventurers for coming to their aid. He shared that their entire village was plagued by terrible goblins. Because of this, they were just on the edge and did not know what to do next. Ruika asked the man again, which means that they are on the verge. The girl pointed out that the order only referred to 5 pathetic goblins. The man replied that yes, at first it was so, when they sent the order to the guild. The man said that from the very beginning there were about 3 of them. But every day there were more and more of them. Rurika replied to the man that yes, she understands that such a terrible situation has developed in their village. But the girl decided to clarify it since he knew that there would be more and more goblins every day. Then why did he not correct the order in the guild for a whole month? The guys realized that this is why the reward for this order was increased. The man asked the girl how many times he still needed to apologize to them. He was very ashamed of it. Rurika asked the elder how many goblins there are in the end, who do not allow them to live normally. The man lowered his head down and sadly replied that there were 10 of them. Rurika exclaimed in horror and asked again that there were 10 of them. Suddenly, the man changed his answer and said that there were not 10, but 20 goblins. Rurika nervously asked the elder again about the number of monsters. She couldn't believe the number. And then after that, the man changed his answer once again and apologized to the guys. He said he was a liar, and in the end, there were only 30 goblins. The guys were on the verge of hysteria, and they couldn't understand that maybe it was some kind of joke. There really were so many goblins in their village. The guys didn't know if everything would go smoothly in the end. Meanwhile, night had fallen in the village. The girls went to bed and gained strength. Sora was awake again and watching the situation in the village. He had been thinking at night about how their battles with the goblins in the village would go. Sora couldn't get these thoughts out of his mind all night. In the course of yesterday's conversation, Rurika asked the headman how often goblins attack their village. The man replied that they do this about once every few days. The elder also said that they were there last night, so he thinks the goblins will be able to return in 3 or 4 days. Rurika replied to the man that everything was clear now. Then today they decided to rest, and tomorrow go to their lair. Sora was worried that he was actually going to take the life of a real being, and he will not do this by accident, but intentionally kill them, even if for the sake of the villagers. Sora began to tremble, and he wondered if he would be able to complete this task in the end, because it was serious. Suddenly, Sora saw that someone had approached their house. The guy turned around and saw that there was a little boy standing there, whom they met as soon as they approached the village. The boy turned to Mr. Adventurer. He thanked Sora for coming to their aid and not leaving them in trouble. Sora understood his feelings and the trouble that had befallen them. Sora began to look around. He saw the boy's torn trousers, probably after one of the attacks. Also a broken fence, or rather, what's left of it. There were various things lying around the village, such as flowers and garden tools. Sora did not answer the boy, but only looked at him in silence. He saw tears in his eyes. The boy told Sora that these goblins had taken all their chickens from the village, and even his most beloved chicken, named Lucky. Sora thought about what he had read in a book that goblins take pleasure in other people's suffering. It was very terrible for him. Suddenly, Sora examined the boy's body even more closely and noticed something. Sora jumped out of his seat and told the boy that he had a wound on his arm. Sora grabbed the guy's hand to examine it and saw large and deep claw wounds. But the boy replied to Sora that other people have injuries worse than just scratches, so he's definitely fine. The guy's not bothered by his wounds. But despite this, Sora felt very sorry for the boy. He decided to help him and took out a bottle of potion from one pocket. Sora poured some of this potion directly on the boy's wound, and he himself looked at it in surprise. Right before the guy's eyes, the wounds began to disappear, and his hand became smooth and clean. The boy was very surprised by what Sora had done to him. Sora decided to hand the potion bottle to the boy. Sora told him to go and share this potion with the other villagers right away. The guy was a little embarrassed and replied to Sora that these potions are expensive, they can't afford it. But Sora quietly asked the boy to just take the bottle and help the rest of the villagers. But he only asked not to tell the girls about their secret, because they would get angry. The boy listened to the guy and thanked him for his help. The boy turned to Mr. Adventurer again and said that he did not know how to fight himself, but he would definitely pray for their victory. Sora continued to tremble, but in order not to worry, he clenched his hand into a fist. Sora replied to the boy that yes, let him do so. Meanwhile, morning came and the whole village woke up. The villagers decided to take Sora and the girls on a hike to the goblins. The elder told the boys that the whole village would pray for their safety in the battle. The guys were serious. They were ready that the battle would be very difficult for them. Sora and the girls hit the road. Rurika told the guys that there were multiple goblin presences in the direction of the southwest, so they will need to move in that direction. But they were already very close to that place. Rurika turned to Sora and told him that she was sorry that the guy's first hunt turned out this way for him. But the guy replied that no, it's okay. Sora told the girls that the people in this village are suffering, so they will have to do everything in their power to rid the village of these goblins. Suddenly, Chris turned to Sora and told him that she would help with everything she had. Rurika supported her friend and nodded. But Sora was tense and he swallowed nervously. The guy thought it was good, they would definitely do it. The guys decided to go over the plan they had prepared before the battle once again. The guys decided that from the very beginning Chris would hit the goblins with his magic and confuse them. The girl's magic will affect the monsters so much that they will not be able to recover at first. The guys assumed that the goblins would start to panic and run out of their lair. They will start running and darting in different directions like blind kittens. And at that moment, it's Rurika's turn, who rushes into the battle and slaughters these creatures. The girl has a great advantage. These are 2 swords and a lot of experience behind her back, so she can destroy quite a lot of goblins. Next, Sora and Chris will take over the bulk of the goblins. In turn, Sora will focus on those few goblins who managed to escape from the guys. Some monsters will definitely start to panic and not understand what to do and where to run. It will play for the best for the guys. And so Sora saw one of the goblins that he would need to destroy. The guy looked at one of the goblins and thought that in various books that he had studied before, goblins are depicted as ferocious monsters that destroy everything in their path. But when a guy looks at them personally, he wakes up with completely different feelings. There was panic in Sora's eyes, because he was afraid to kill them. Sora couldn't believe that he was going to take a sentient being's life with his own hands right now. He plans to just kill him. It was unacceptable for a guy. At that moment, Rurika turned her attention to Sora and told him that she knew what he was thinking right now. But the girl decided to ask the guy what would happen to the village and its inhabitants if they left them alive now. After all, goblins will destroy everything: food, work, a place to live. Thus, people will simply lose everything. Rurika, right in the process of destroying the goblins, told the guy that maybe in this situation it was not for them to judge which actions would be fair and which would not. But at least Rurika really didn't want to let any of the other people start suffering again. And they didn't help them. The guy's eyes widened, and the flow of his thoughts could not stop. Sora remembered the boy he had met in the village. There was horror in his eyes, and his tears begged for help from his village. Suddenly, at this moment, the face of an evil goblin appeared right in front of Sora, who attacked the guy. Sora began to realize that he simply had no other choice. He would have to do it. Sora tensed, clenched his teeth, and prepared for the blow. When the goblin was very close, Sora swung his sword and struck directly at the goblin's stomach. It was a decisive move by the guy that dispelled his doubts. Sora got a taste for it, and it allowed him to deal with goblins without a twinge of conscience. And after a while, Sora's first battle with the goblins was already over. There were many monster bodies on the ground, with wounds from the guy's swords. Rurika turned to Sora and told him that it was the last goblin, so they destroyed them all. The girl said that the guy did a good job on this assignment. Suddenly, the girl's face changed very much. Fear appeared in her eyes. Rurika told the guy that he had blood on his head. He must be injured. Sora started to panic, and he asked the girl that she was telling the truth. The guy said he's fine and feels good, so it's just an ordinary scratch. Sora raised his head and saw Chris in front of him, holding a bottle of potion in her hands. The guy immediately told her that it was a very expensive potion. He doesn't need it because the wound will heal itself soon. Despite this, Chris took the guy's hand. Sora was very surprised by this, but he did not object to her. The guy fell to his knees so that Chris could more conveniently treat Sora's wound. Chris put a small napkin to Sora's forehead and began to tie it with a ribbon. In the process, Sora never objected to the girl or said anything to her. It was only after Chris finished treating the guy's wound that Sora turned around and thanked the girl. Chris was still tense and she didn't answer him. Rurika was glad that Chris took the initiative and helped Sora. After the guy's work was finished, they collected all the goblin corpses and burned them in a large bonfire. They did this so that the goblins would not turn into undead, and the smell of blood would not attract animals worse than them. Sora, Rurika, and Chris stood by the fire with their eyes closed, because it was also a ritual expressing respect for the dead. After a while, the guys returned to the village unharmed, and they immediately went to the elder's house. Rurika handed the man a bag and said that all 34 goblins had been safely destroyed. The man was trembling with impotence, but it was clear from him that he exhaled with relief. The elder told the children that he expresses his deepest gratitude to them. After all, their persistent efforts in the battle against the goblins saved their village from many troubles. Rurika replied to the man that they were fine this time because there were only goblins. But still, the girl asked the man not to lie about the orders he sends to the guild anymore. The elder replied that yes, he would definitely be more careful in such matters now. A smile appeared on the man's face, and he told the guys that they had now prepared a feast in their honor. He asked the guys to stay and enjoy their hospitality. When night fell, the guys came to a feast that was organized in honor of their victory over the goblins. Wreaths of flowers were put on the children, and when they saw the feast, their eyes widened in surprise. A huge table was set right in the middle of the village, on which there was a lot of food. All the people were happy that they would not be disturbed by monsters anymore, and they celebrated it. A girl with a child on her back and a man approached the guys and bowed down in front of them. The girl said that once these goblins almost took their boy. The man thanked the guys from the bottom of his heart. Then 2 girls came up to them and said that the goblins had stolen half of their pigs, but now they were safe. The girls were very grateful to the guys. 3 more people came up to them, who said that they too would like to thank the adventurers for saving them. Eventually, all the villagers came up to the guys, and everyone began to thank the guys for what they had done. They raised mugs of drinks for them and rejoiced. But Sora, Rurika, and Chris themselves stood and looked at the residents with incomprehension. They didn't know what to say to that now. Suddenly, someone pulled Sora's hand, attracting attention. It was the same boy who called the guy Mr. Adventurer. A happy smile appeared on his face, and he thanked Sora for saving him. The boy thanked them for taking care of the goblins, and now they can play with their friends safely again. And then the boy looked at Sora's face and saw a gauze bandage under a wreath of flowers. He immediately asked the guy if he was injured. Sora replied that no, nothing terrible had happened to him. His friends had already taken care of his wound and rewound it. The boy exhaled with relief and replied that everything was fine then and he didn't have to worry. But the boy's face changed to a confident one, and he told Sora that when he grows up and becomes big, he also wants to become an adventurer, like them all. The guy promised Sora that he would be very strong and he would be able to defend the village from the attacks of various monsters. This touched Sora a little. The guy sat down slightly to the boy and gently and encouragingly stroked his head. Sora supported the boy and told him that, yes, the guy was absolutely sure that the boy would succeed. He thinks that this will be the case in the future, and Sora himself promised the guy to become even stronger than he is now, in order to keep up with him. The boy was very pleased to hear this from the adventurer, and he thanked Sora. Suddenly, the boy was called by his friends, who all gathered in a small team. They asked the boy what he was doing there. The guys invited him to go play adventurers with them. The boy immediately replied that he would come to them now. The boy bowed his head in front of the litter, a sign of gratitude and respect, and immediately ran to the guys to play. Sora waved at the boy and thought that he intentionally killed a creature with his own hands today. He was still very worried about it. Even though Sora knew that they had done a lot of evil to the villagers, he could not decide for a long time to destroy the first goblin. But it was only because he and the girls gathered their thoughts and tuned in an instant that they were able to protect the smiles of these happy children and their parents. Sora realized that this was the day that he would never forget in his life now, and he will remember him for a long time. Sora and the girl sat down at the table, and suddenly Rurika shouted, "What is it?" The girl tasted the dish and said it was so delicious. Rurika admitted that she had never eaten anything like it. Rurika turned to Sora and said that he should try this dish right now. The girl handed the guy a plate with a neatly laid-out dish. Sora took it and thought it was bacon. The guy tasted it and immediately replied that it just tasted delicious. Sora thought that this taste brought him back to the past. The guy couldn't believe that he could taste a piece of the house here in this place. Rurika laughed at the guy and asked him what kind of reaction it was. The girl turned her head and saw the headman there who was approaching the guys. He had a plate of meat in his hands. The man told the guys that this is one of the specialties that is prepared in their village. It spoils much faster than dried meat, which is why people don't often trade it. Rurika replied to the man that everything was clear, but Sora wondered if bacon was such a rarity in this place. The village elder and the girls were chatting sweetly with each other, but suddenly Sora noticed that Seal flew by them. The guy looked at him carefully and thought that he was near him again. The elder laughed a little and told the guys that he was glad that they liked everything. The man held up a plate of bacon and said that he had plenty more bacon, so they could eat as much as they wanted. Suddenly, Seal flew up to the plate and looked appealingly at the plate. He didn't wait and just ate all the bacon on the plate in one bite. Everyone gasped as soon as they saw that the bacon magically disappeared on its own from the plate. The guys even opened their mouths in surprise and started asking everyone if they had seen that the food had just disappeared by itself. At that moment, Sora was covered in sweat and thought that he was the only person who could see Ciel, and he had to explain to them somehow about what had just happened. The guys started stuttering and trying to tell at least something to the surprised people. None of the residents could believe what they saw with their own eyes. One of the men said not to be told that it was a real spirit, and Ciel himself was eating the last crumbs from the elder's plate at that moment. Everyone was very tense, and some even lost the power of speech. In the midst of the feast, Ciel made a fuss. One of the residents began to shout confidently that this was a real spirit. Some residents began to get angry at an unknown and invisible creature devouring their food. But Ciel himself realized that everyone around him was angry at him. He became very nervous and upset about it. The guys approached the elder and began waving their hands around the plate to feel at least some substance. But they shouted that there was just no one there. At that moment, the guys were passing their hands right through the body of a frustrated Ciel. He was embarrassed and ashamed. Sora noticed that Ciel was flying away from him to heaven again. But for some reason, all the people began to rejoice and shout with happiness. Rurika turned to the elder and asked him with a scared look what was going on there. And what are all these people talking about? The elder said that the phenomenon when food suddenly disappears by itself is known to the population as the tricks of a fairy. It is also called an offering to the spirit. The man also said that he had heard information that in the year when this happens, forests flourish in abundance, and livestock grow healthy and strong. Rurika realized that this was a good sign in this place, and she was glad. The man was calm and told the guys that today was a truly joyful day. It is filled with only the best news and events. Therefore, it definitely needs to be noted. There were empty plates on the table, and all the food was almost gone. And this means that the time of fun has begun. All the people of the village began to dance happily and rejoice at such a beautiful day. And Rorike was dancing in the very center with the elder. Sora and Chris were sitting at the table and did not come out to dance. Sora laughed and told Chris that he had eaten so well, but the guy was still tormented by Seal's question. The guy couldn't figure out what kind of white and fluffy thing was flying in front of him. Sora wondered if it was really something like a fairy or a spirit. Sora turned to Chris. The guy asked if the girl knew anything about fairies and spirits. He asked me to tell him any information. Chris thought about it and replied that people say that fairies and spirits exist in this world. The girl said that fairies look like little people, but they only differ in that wings grow on their backs. Obviously, they can understand and speak their language. And as the village head told him, everyone says that they really like to prank people. And, for example, eating their food right in front of their eyes. The girl added that from the point of view of different legends, spirits are somewhat similar to fairies. Only they don't have a specific shape or appearance. They understand human speech, but only a few can speak in a way that is understandable. Users of spirit magic can communicate with them through their minds. But that was only the information she had heard. Sora was very surprised by Chris's story. The guy replied to the girl that she not only knows a lot about magic, but can also tell so many interesting things about such things. Sora called the girl simply incredible, but it embarrassed Chris to the point of insanity. The girl turned away from Sora and began to stutter. She couldn't answer him. At that moment, Sora wondered what that meant, that the probability of him being a real spirit was quite high, but it could be something else, as far as he understood. Suddenly, Rurika, who continued to be in the elder's company, called out to Sora and Chris. The girl told the boys that the village head had told her that they would share the meat with them. In response, the elder laughed. Chris and Sora were very happy about this news, and Sora was especially happy about the bacon. While people continued to dance and drink to a great day, the village headman took the children to a small house. The man handed them several bundles of meat and bowed down in front of them again. The guys were very surprised, and Sora asked what he was giving them so much. But can they really take that much? The village head replied that they were the saviors of the village, and if they need something else, they can just tell the man. Sora asked the headman if he could tell them about how they make this meat. The man replied that after processing, they dry and smoke it on firewood. The village headman asked the boys if they wanted him to tell them more about it. And then the village headman gave the guys a whole meat lecture. The guys immediately had a lot of questions. Chris asked the man that the taste would not be the same if you used wood from outside the village. Rorika said it takes quite a lot of work, but this was to be expected because the meat is very tasty. Sora asked the village headman if he could let him buy some of this tree. Rorika was very surprised and asked him what he wanted to make meat himself. It's very difficult. Sora replied to the girl that this meat was so delicious, so he wants to try to make it himself. The village head replied that this tree grows around their village and it is not so valuable to take money for it. The man pointed to the corner and said that they had a lot of firewood there. Therefore, they can take as much firewood as they want. This surprised the guys very much. Sora thanked the village headman, and the man left the house. Sora sat down and measured out that he would need about that much firewood, so he would take it with him. But Rurika was outraged by the guy's actions, and said that they definitely would not be able to carry it away. After all, they have 3 days to go back. The girl asked Sora if he understood this. Sora laughed and hesitated a little. Sora decided to apply his magic storage skill, and immediately a bale of firewood, consisting of 53 pieces, turned out to be in the guy's storage inventory. The girls saw the magical disappearance of the firewood and were very surprised by it. Rurika immediately asked the guy that he had just used spatial magic. Sora awkwardly replied that yes, it was. The girls immediately rushed to the guy, and Rurika told Sora that he had a big secret. The girls said that even high-ranking squads want to have such a guy. The girl confessed that she was so jealous of Sora. The guy agreed with her and said that about this, he would like it to remain a secret only between them. But Rurika asked Sora why he decided that. After all, he can join a very strong squad and even receive payments for it. Sora replied to the girl that although he could use spatial magic, he was still very weak to join such teams. Sora added that if he joined a strong squad, he would only become a burden to them. So for now, the guy decided to gain more experience in order to become even stronger. and the guy was definitely satisfied with everything in his decision. Rurika replied that if he wanted to, they could keep him for now. And Chris also nodded in agreement. Sora replied to the girls that he would be very happy about it. The guy thanked Rurika and Chris. Rurika once again clarified with the guy that he really wants to keep this a secret from everyone. Sora replied that if he joined another squad, then they would have to break up with each other. The guy admitted that he still wants to be on the team with them. Chris and Rurika looked at the guy with their mouths open in surprise. Suddenly, Rurika slapped Sora sharply on the back, which made him even scream. The girl went to the door and told Sora that, of course, he wanted it. And they also want to be a team. Rurika tensed slightly and headed towards the exit of the house. Chris didn't stay long. She walked over to Sora and gently took his hand. The girl closed her eyes and nodded to the guy, in agreement and gratitude. Sora looked at the girl in surprise. Rurika continued to be nervous, and she asked Sora if he had asked the village headman for the meat recipe. The girl asked the guy if he even knows how to cook something. Sora replied that he helped his mother from time to time in the kitchen, but he doesn't know how to cook something too complicated. Rurika said that then she hoped that a great camping kitchen would be waiting for them on the way back. Rurika asked Chris if she agreed with her. Meanwhile, the next morning came. After a cheerful village feast, the guys went back to the royal capital. The guys said goodbye to all the inhabitants of the village, left its borders, and set off on their way back. As the guys were walking, Sora thought that they'd even collected supplies for them on the way back. The guy understood that they were truly grateful to them for their work. The boys went the same way as on the way to the village. Therefore, they had some freedom of action. This allowed them to start playing words on the topic of food. Chris and Rurika asked Sora what chocolate was, and the guy in response asked them what a pechanadiru was. After a while, it began to get dark and the guys stopped. Rurika suggested that Sora and Chris set up camp right there. Rurika asked the guy with a sly smile that he would treat them to a delicious dinner today. Sora replied to the girl that he would try very hard. Chris said that then she would prepare a backup dinner in case Sora screwed up. Sora immediately tensed up and asked Chris about when she became so talkative. Rurika laughed at the guys. Chris was upset about this, and the girl thought that she wanted to say the word to try. The girl also had to try to cook something delicious in order to please Sora. Rurika started shaking the guy and telling him that she had high hopes for Sora, but the guy only asked the girl not to raise the bar of responsibility even higher. Sora laid out all the food they had around him and began to think what he should cook from all these rustic products. Sora looked at such a product and came up with various combinations with each other. And suddenly he came up with something. Sora took one of the fruits and began peeling it. Sora thought that the tubers they had eaten in the village back then tasted like potatoes to him. The only difference was that this tuber had funny patterns on the outside, but inside it was quite a real potato. Sora decided to cut it into pieces, and then, according to the recipe, they should put them in the microwave, which they certainly do not have. So the guy put the pieces in a frying pan, mixed with water and salt, and then fried. The guy decided to try what he could do, but the pieces were very hot. Sora thought they were a little sweeter than regular potatoes, but they were also very tasty. Sora decided to put them aside for now. Next, he took today's star, bacon. Sora decided to fry the bacon until it has a slightly crispy crust. The guy would also like to add mute onions to his dish, but they didn't have any. At that moment, Chris and Rurika started walking towards the guy's food flavor. Chris told Sora that the bacon he cooks smells so good. Rurika added that the hot oil sounds very pleasant to the ears. Her mouth watered. Sora smiled at the girls and replied that he was almost ready. He just needed a second. After that, Sora decided to add potatoes to the bacon in the pan and season everything to taste. Next, it should all be fried a little. A moment later, the guy's dish was ready and he took it to the girls. Sora thanked them for waiting for his meal. Sora presented them with his resulting dish, which is fried potatoes with bacon. Chris and Rurika looked at the plate with admiration. And besides, the guys had soup on the table, which Chris had made. They wished each other a good appetite. Rurika tasted the food and told Sora that it was so soft and delicious. Chris supported the girl and said that she had never tried this before. Sora relaxed and asked the girls if they were telling the truth. He was glad of it then. Sora tried it too and thought it tasted sweeter than regular potatoes. It also goes well with salted bacon. Rurika told Sora that he did a great job, and he cooks really well. He also showed them the rents. The girl asked the guy where he learned to cook so well. Sora replied that his mother had taught him that. The guy's mom said that in their time, boys should also be able to cook delicious food. The guy added that she praised him for cooking herself. So he started practicing from time to time. Chris smiled sweetly and said that the guy had a great mother. Sora told Chris that her soup was also very tasty. Because of this, the girl was embarrassed and she timidly thanked the guy. Chris thought that she had put all her strength into it. Chris told the guy that his fruit tasted better than her soup anyway. Sora asked the girl what she meant. After all, her soup is clearly better. The guys started arguing with each other about whose dish was the best, and it went on for a while. Suddenly, Sora and Chris abruptly turned to Rurika and asked her whose dish was better. The girl was very nervous, but she found a way out of the situation and, raising her hands in the air, said that they were both winners. Chris and Sora exchanged glances with each other, and after that, they had a nice laugh about the situation. Sora thought it was funny. He really wanted to continue traveling with these girls. Sora turned to the girls and asked them that they were both in the middle of their journey, weren't they? He asked them how long they were going to stay in his country. Suddenly, Chris and Rurika's faces became sad and they looked down. Rurika replied that they would stay there until they rose to the C rank. They are currently ranked D, but when they rise, they plan to move to another country. Sora replied to the girls that everything was clear now. Rurika said that, considering this, they are still too weak and they need to take a bunch more orders before they can rise in rank. So they will stay there for a while longer. Rurika looked at Chris and said that, moreover, they were having a lot of fun with Sora. These words confused the guy a little. He did not expect to hear this. Rurika told Sora that in the end, she would like to offer him to work with each other a little more. Sora was very happy about this, and he definitely agreed with the girls, because he hoped that they would stay working together. Sora looked up at the sky and thought that the time of their parting was very close. So he needs to improve his skills and levels as soon as possible and finally become stronger. He needed to do this so that he could survive on his own, and so that he could say goodbye to the girls with a smile on his face. The guy dreamily imagined that the stars in this clear sky softly illuminated the future. Meanwhile, the order of the Soros and the girls was completed. The guys returned to the Adventurers Guild, and Mikaro met them there. The girl was glad to see them. Sora thought that Mikaro's energetic greeting made him feel like he had returned home. For a guy, the girl was very sweet. Rurika turned to the girl and handed her the bag. Rurika said that they had returned, and here were their magic stones from the task, as proof of the completion of the order. When Rurika placed the bag on the table, Mikaro was surprised by its size. She asked the guys why they had collected so many magic stones. But shouldn't there be only 5 of them? Rurika replied that yes, they would provide a report on the order later. Mikaro told the guys that she thought so. They had a hard time on this order. The girl looked at Sora and saw the rewound head. The girl asked that he had an injury. Sora replied that the girl should not worry. Nothing serious had happened to him. Mikaro breathed a sigh of relief and told the guys that if they wanted, she could stick a small patch on. Sora hesitated and turned his gaze to Chris, who was very tense. The girl started blushing heavily and making kettle noises, so Sora awkwardly replied to Mikaro that he was fine. Rurika realized what was going on between Sora and Chris and giggled a little. Suddenly, she remembered the main news of the kingdom and asked Mikaro how things were going with the pack of wolves. Mikaro asked the girl what she meant by a pack of wolves that appeared near the capital. So many orders have already been successfully placed on them. Rurika breathed a sigh of relief and said that she was glad that everything had gone without serious problems. The girl asked Mikaro what it meant that they weren't that strong. But Mikaro replied that no, it wasn't. Mikaro said that, as predicted by the guildmaster, there was a high-level monster at the head of the pack. Usually, such an order takes a long time. But in this case, there were already adventurers of B and C ranks who decided to work together. And it all went pretty fast. But it was still dangerous that such a monster was so close to their city. Rurika was very tense and she asked Mikaro again that there was a high-level monster there. Mikaro replied that yes, it is. Nothing like this has ever appeared in the vicinity of the capital before. They've been having a hard time lately. Sora agreed with Mikaro on this. Meanwhile, the guys, each with their own thoughts, left the guild. Rurika told Sora that they had a day off today and tomorrow. Sora replied to her that it was fine, then they would see each other at the guild. The guys said goodbye to each other. Sora calmly went to his hotel and was buried in his soaps. Suddenly, Ciel appeared right in front of his face. Sora asked the furry creature that he had finally returned to him. After a while, Sora returned to the hotel. He immediately collapsed onto the bed to rest. But still, the guy's thoughts did not leave his head. Sora thought about how this was his first extermination order, and he still clearly feels like he's cutting that goblin. Sora lightly touched his wound, and Yango had flashbacks. The guy thought that he probably would have died if it hadn't been for Chris and Rurika who helped him. Sora realized that even if goblins were weak on their own, their strength lay in numbers. Therefore, he definitely needed to become stronger. The guy understood that he needed to train even more and improve his swordsmanship. He also needed to keep using his skills to level them up. But the most important thing is that he needs to walk a lot to accumulate experience and skill points. Suddenly, Sora abruptly jumped out of bed and said that he had been walking all week, so he had to gain a lot of experience. Sora immediately demanded to open the status panel. Sora saw that he already had the 20th level, as well as 8 skill points. The skills with the highest levels of all were Assessment, Body Strengthening, and Detection. They were level 6. The experience counter indicated that he had 762 points out of 130,000. Sora also noticed that his skill levels had increased, and all he had to do was walk for a week. Sora was very pleased with his performance. Sora thought that the 2 new skills, namely Parallel Thinking and Improved Recovery, which he received during the order, were also very useful. The guy realized that when using Parallel Thinking, it was as if he was dividing his consciousness between both hemispheres. When the guys were camping, Sora used this to sleep with his left hemisphere, and with his right he used his detection skill. Thus, Sora can simultaneously rest and monitor the situation that is happening around him. But despite this, it turned out that his level was still too low to use 2 skills at the same time. Thus, after a while, he ran out of SP. So his skills were forcibly disabled and the guy woke up. He got scared and asked the girls where he was and why it was so dark there. Sora thought he was a little scared, but thanks to the enhanced recovery skill, his SP recovered quite quickly. HP, SP, and MP recover naturally over time. But still, they are consumed very quickly, so this skill is very useful. Sora had nothing when he was called into this world, but now he has skills and companions, and this means that his new life is going very well. Suddenly, something caught the guy's attention. Sora looked at the status bar and saw that the amount of experience needed to get to the next level had increased, and it seems that after the 20th level, there will be an increase of 20,000 experience points for each level. Sora thought that this meant that it would be more difficult to level up each time. Therefore, getting skill points will take even longer. The guy really wanted to change his new skills, but he immediately waved his head and decided that for now he would keep the glasses, just in case. Sora chuckled and said that it looked like he still had a lot to learn. Sora noticed that he had casually touched his wound from the battle. The guy thought that was right. He carefully unwound the bandages and said that thanks to his advanced recovery skill, the cut on his forehead had already healed. The guy admitted that he just loves his skills. At that moment, Sora remembered how Chris gently and carefully treated the guy's wound and wrapped his head with a bandage. This confused Sora a little. He looked at his bandage and thought about it. The guy decided that he probably needed to rewrap his head with a bandage. Even though his wound had healed, Sora didn't want Chris to get upset. Ciel appeared next to the guy again and started giggling at him. Sora noticed the furry creature and was surprised because Ciel started showing the heart with his ears. This made Sora very angry, and he started telling Ciel loudly that he had just laughed at him. Ciel smiled slyly and turned away from the guy. Sora immediately called out to Ciel and asked him to look into his eyes. He threatened the creature that if he didn't look at it right away, the guy would start poking at it with his hands again. Sora reflected that every day he has so many fun, new, and interesting things going on, and they don't have anything planned tomorrow, so it's possible that Sora himself will take small orders. The guy's attention was again attracted by Ciel flying around him. The guy said that, if you think about it, he still doesn't know who he really is. But still, Sora suggested that maybe he would be able to apply his skills, since he had a good level. Sora looked at Ciel and applied his assessment skill to him, but a window appeared in front of the guy that the assessment was disabled. This angered Sora, and he asked in what sense it was disabled. Meanwhile, it has been several weeks since that very goblin order in the village. Today, Sora is meeting with Rurika and Chris in order to take a new order. Sora approached the salesman, whom he calls Uncle, and wished him a good morning. Sora asked him to take one of the skewers with him. The man also wished the guy good morning and immediately gave Sora a barbecue on a skewer. The man added extra juice to it. Sora thanked the man, but Ciel appeared on the horizon again, who quickly took a bite of one piece of kebab. But the man did not see CL and thought that he had forgotten to add one piece to his skewer. The seller apologized to the guy. Sora replied that no, he had just eaten it and did it very quickly, which the man did not notice. Sora looked at CL and thought that he had become very voracious since they returned from the village. The guy remembered how the furry creature ate rangy toasts with bacon. Sora thought that Seal was the spirit of gluttony. The guy turned to Seal and told him that he had asked him not to steal his food in front of people. Suddenly, something shocked Seal, and he felt a certain trepidation. Seal turned sharply away from the guy again and flew away in the other direction. Sora called out to him and asked where he was going again. Recently, Sora noticed that, for some reason, he does not like the royal castle. Sora wondered if he could feel some kind of unpleasant aura from this castle. Meanwhile, Sora had already joined the Adventurers Guild. He was met there by Siphon and Arco, and they were glad to see him. The guys greeted each other. Sora turned to the guys and he asked them what they were drinking this stuff for. Arco replied to Sora that he was just on vacation. Siphon laughed at the guy's words and said that he laughed at the guy's words and said that he was just too lazy to work. Siphon asked Sora that he had an order again. Sora happily replied that yes, he was waiting for Chris and Rarika. Siphon replied that he understood everything. Siphon turned to the girl and asked her to pour Sora a little drink. The girl replied that she would be right there. But Sora called out to her and said that he would only drink juice. And so the guys sat down at the table. Arco turned to Sora with a sly face and asked the guy how they were doing. He's in the squad with two beauties. Arco admitted that he was jealous of him. Sora told the guys that they were just taking orders. For example, they recently went crab hunting. Then they hunted. But Sora didn't have enough experience, so he did everything very slowly. The guy looked at Chris and thought she was so fast, and he was a disgrace. Sora also did his courier work. In the process, the guy noticed that he had adapted, and he no longer needed the card. Sora told the guys that they also carried out orders to collect herbs. Siphon, with a sly face, asked the guy what they were going to do. Siphon said that he had heard from people that they were very cool in this business. The man asked Sora that they had found a good place for this, or something like that. Sora remembered Chris's words that people who can use the assessment skill are even rarer than users of spatial magic. This is a very valuable skill. Sora began to actively drink his juice and reflected that he did not think that the assessment skill would turn out to be such a cool thing. But he doesn't want to stand out. So the guy replied to the guys that they were just reading how to distinguish herbs better. Arco and Siphon cunningly laughed at the guy, and suddenly Arco abruptly stood up and told Sora to stop talking about work already. After all, he was asking him about something else. Arco told the guy that he wanted to know what kind of relationship he had with these two nipples. The guy almost choked on such a question. Arco said that Ruka has big breasts, and she is a straight boy woman. And Chris? She's quiet. But the way she always tries her best, it's so strangely cute. Sora immediately blushed and replied to Arco that he didn't look at them that way. Arco got excited too and asked Sora to fill up. He didn't believe that Sora really didn't look at girls that way. Arco asked Sora which of the girls he wanted, or maybe two at once. Siphon lightly hugged Sora and asked Arco what his wording was. After all, their Sora is an innocent boy. But still, Siphon asked the guy that he liked one of them. Sora started to get nervous, and he timidly replied that yes, he liked it. In his mind, he imagined the gentle Chris. Sora blushed even more and began to say something unintelligible. The men couldn't wait for a response from Sora. At that moment, the door creaked in the tavern and Rurika and Chris entered the guild. Rurika immediately apologized to the guy for making him wait so long. But Sora couldn't find a place for himself when he heard their voices. Sora immediately got up from the table and told the guys that he would probably go. But Arco grabbed his arm and stopped him. The guy asked Sora why he was in such a hurry. Arco turned to the girls and asked them why they shouldn't all have a drink together. The girls were a little embarrassed, and Sora himself held his breath in fear. And so the guys all sat down together and ordered drinks. But Sora and Chris were very embarrassed by such an awkward meeting. They even sat suspiciously far away from each other at the table and did not look into each other's eyes. And Arco and Siphon were giggling at the guys. A sly grin appeared on their faces, and the guys began to whisper that this was her, the one Sora liked. Arco turned to Siphon and said that he would help Sora. Arco turned to Chris to get her attention. The guy got up and walked closer to the girl. Arco asked Chris if she knew that she was very sweet. The guy also asked the girl if she had a boyfriend. He gently pulled her closer to him. Rurika and Sora were terrified of what Arko was doing now. Sora immediately decided to stand up for Chris, and the guy told Arko that he shouldn't say such things. The guy was outraged by his behavior. Arko asked Sora why he couldn't say that. He's just telling a nice girl how cute she is. Sora started to stutter and get nervous. He replied to the guy that maybe it was true. Arko took Chris by the hand and said that as long as she wasn't his girlfriend, he could tell her whatever he wanted. Arko asked Sora if he could have such a relationship with her. What was the reason for his shaking? Arko moved closer to Chris's lips, and he asked the girl what about him and her. She liked him after all. Suddenly, Rurika jumped out of her seat, sharply hit Arko on the head with her hand, so that he also hit the table. Rurika called him a fool. Rurika told the guy that she, of course, understands how he feels. But still, the girl asked if Arko could see that Chris was uncomfortable. Arko stood up and replied that yes, he was apologizing to Chris. Sora breathed out a sigh of relief. Suddenly, Chris and Sora's gazes crossed and a spark ran between them. But immediately after that, the guys turned away from each other and blushed deeply. Meanwhile, the guys finished their drinks and Sora and the girls went to search for tasks. They went to a huge board, and Sora asked the girls what they thought they should take this time. Rurika said they would take a look now, but before that, she would like to clarify something. Rurika asked Sora that he was an E rank, which he has now. Sora replied that he was still E rank, but already close to D rank. Rurika looked at Chris and saw her sad face. This also upset the girl, and she replied that everything was clear. Rurika said that the fact is that they will probably reach C rank after completing the next order. And then, they will leave this country. So after this order, Rurika thinks that they will say goodbye. Sora tightened his grip on the straps of his backpack and thought that he knew for sure that this time would come, but still he hoped not so fast. Sora would like this to go on forever, but no matter how much he wants it, time is running out. One moment gives way to another, so the time spent together is coming to an end. After completing the order, Sora decided to find out his rank and look at it on the card. It indicated that the guy had a D rank. Sora was slightly surprised by this, because he had not expected this a little. Rurika was very happy for the guy, and told Sora that he had risen to the D rank. She congratulated the guy. Sora also told the girls that the two of them had just reached C rank. There was sadness in the guy's eyes, and he told the girls that this meant that their squad was breaking up. Sora asked the girls what the two of them were going to do next. Rurika said that they planned to go as an escort to the City of Faces, and then they will go directly to the Animal Kingdom. Sora thought that the girls were talking about escorts. He wondered what kind of order it was. Sora turned to the girls and said that he had a request for them. Sora asked the girls to let him join this order with them. Rurika and Chris tensed slightly and looked at the guy excitedly. Sora said that while he has the opportunity, he wants to gain experience in ordering escorts. Sora added that he would take a carriage and return to the capital as soon as they reached Fessus. The guy said he would understand if they refused him, but a modest smile appeared on the girls' faces. Chris replied to the guy that they would only be for him to go with him. Rurika suggested that the guy ask if they could move a team of 3 people to this order. Sora thought it would take about 10 days to get to the city of Fessus. Mikaru was a little worried because it was a carrying quest, but eventually she allowed the guy to go there. And now there were already 5 days left before the order. Rurika and Chris are going to have some rest until then. Sora himself still can't get rid of this disturbing feeling. The guy was carrying a huge backpack with goods, and thought that because of this feeling, he took even more delivery orders than usual to keep himself busy. All the people were surprised by Sora's stamina. The guy thought that these two had lost their home and left the country after the war. They could just settle down somewhere. Meanwhile, the guy's luggage disappeared in the blink of an eye. The guy was very interested in why the girls were wandering around different cities and countries. Sora said that the last order for today, it will need to be taken to North Street. It must have been there somewhere. Sora stopped near a beautiful street decorated with stones. There were a lot of girls in the company of men, whom they entertained. Sora noticed in one of the windows that the men were gambling while the beautiful girls were doing massages. Someone was standing and hugging. This made the guy blush a lot, because he did not expect to see such a thing. Suddenly, Arko called out to Sora and said that he was in such a vulgar place. He offered to show him some nice girls if he wanted to. Sora immediately nervously replied that no, he didn't need to because he was doing the delivery. Arko replied that yes, of course, that's what he does. Sora shouted again that yes, it was true. Delivery to an institution called the Dancing Black Rabbit. Suddenly, the girls came up to the guy and said that this order was for them. They thanked the guy for the delivery. But Sora was already barely breathing and trembling with embarrassment. One of the girls asked the guy why he didn't stay and play with them. Sora immediately replied that no, he would not do that. The guy took off and told the girls that he had a job, so he went. Sora wandered down this street and thought that he had finished with the delivery, so it was time for him to go home. Suddenly, the guy's gaze stopped on someone, and Sora was horrified. Sora saw that Chris was standing in front of him, near the entrance to one of the buildings. The guy couldn't understand why she was alone in the area of prostitutes. Sora saw that the man grabbed Chris by the arm and began to drag her into his house. Sora was horrified by this. He didn't know what the girl could be doing there. Chris didn't like the man's act, and she asked him to stop and not do anything wrong with her. Sora realized that the girl needed to be saved. The guy called out to Chris with all his might so that everyone on the street could hear. Chris heard a familiar voice and turned her head at the guy. The girl was very glad that it was Sora. She immediately ran to him. The man at the door asked Chris that she had a boyfriend. Chris ran up to Sora and thanked him because the guy saved her from the hands of a man. Sora replied to the girl that he was glad she was okay. But still, he asked Chris what she was doing in such a place. He definitely didn't expect to see her there. Chris was a little embarrassed and did not answer this question. But she asked Sora what he was doing there. Sora looked at the girl questioningly. Chris clenched her hand into a fist with all her might and asked Sora that he hadn't been doing anything bad there. Sora replied that no. He asked Chris not to even think about it. He just has a delivery, and he brought the order here. Chris looked down and replied that she understood him. Chris told Sora that she had something she wanted to talk to him about. The girl asked the guy, when he was done with the delivery, if they could meet with Rurika. Sora replied positively. The guys went to the coffee shop. Chris told the guys her whole story, and Rurika asked the girl that she had gone to the slaver herself. Rurika turned to Sora and thanked him for protecting Chris. Then Rurika turned to Chris and said that she needed to stop doing such stupid things. Chris apologized timidly to Rurika. Chris said that everything she does depends on her, so she just wanted to do something useful. Rurika was pleased to hear this, and she thanked Chris for it. Rurika said that despite this, there are many dark and dangerous places. Therefore, she should be more careful. Sora listened to the girls and thought that Rurika was very angry this time. It's the first time he's seen her in this mood. Sora turned to Chris and asked her what she wanted to talk to him about. Chris and Rurika exchanged glances with each other and nodded. Rurika told the guy that they had discussed for a long time when they and Sora should talk about it. Chris apologized to the guy for starting the conversation so late. Chris confessed to Sora that they were traveling in search of someone. Sora looked at the girls in surprise and asked who they were talking about. Chris replied that they were looking for their childhood friend, whom they broke up with during the war. Sora asked the girls again that they were traveling in search of friends. Chris replied that they had already mentioned that their hometown had been attacked during the war. 10 years ago, the very first city that was attacked after the start of the war was their home. Then everything was in ruins, and the children tried to escape in one of the preserved buildings. Little Rurika was crying very loudly and couldn't stop. Her friend told her that she was such a crybaby. Another girl tried to calm her down, and she asked the girl not to worry. The goddesses would come and save them. Sira was always a cheerful half-beast girl, and Eris is a hard-working elf, and there were always 4 of them. That was until the Borshil Kingdom attacked them. Grandma ran into the children's room and called out to everyone. Grandma informed the guys that the front was already there. Enemy soldiers are approaching them. Grandma shouted to the guys to run into the woods right now. She asked them to run as fast as possible. The grandmother asked the children not to get caught by them no matter what. And so the children, with fear in their eyes, ran away from the enemy soldiers who were catching up with them. Sira and Chris separated at one point and began to get lost in the crowd. They tried to reach each other somehow, but because of the panic, they couldn't do it. At the last moment, Sarah shouted to Chris that they would meet at the ghost tree later. Chris tried her best to reach for the sulfur, but she couldn't do anything. People ran in a crowd and demolished everything in their path. After a while, when everything had calmed down a little, Chris went to the place appointed by Gray. The girl was trembling with pain and fatigue. She was covered in wounds, without one shoe. Chris got to the ghost tree, but the rest of her girls weren't there. But Rurika was still sitting on a rock near the tree and waiting for her friends. When she saw Chris, Tears of joy appeared in her eyes that she had seen at least one of her loved ones. Rurika immediately jumped off the rock and ran to Chris. She hugged her with all her strength and didn't let go anymore. The girls began to cry bitterly that they no longer saw the rest of their friends. No matter how long the girls waited, they didn't come. And so Chris told Sora that's why they went on a trip to find their precious friends. Sora was very impressed by the girl's story. He began to feel sad and thought that they had such a painful past. Of all the childhood friends, Rurika and Chris were the only ones who stayed with each other and supported each other to the end. Sora realized that this was the reason why these two loved each other so much. Sora was very grateful to the girls for telling him their story from childhood, despite the fact that it was sad. Sora asked the girls if they had any leads where they could look for their friends. Rurika replied that children captured during the war were often sold into slavery in different places. If their friends were captured and sold into slavery, then they can be in absolutely any country. That's why Chris and Rurika have become adventurers, and they ask about them in a variety of places. Chris told Sora that today she went to ask a slave trader for a favor before they left the capital. She asked the man to contact the guild if he had any information about Sora or Eris, and she even paid the man for it. But despite this, the man grabbed her by the hand and dragged her to his house. Now Chris realized that she had to be more careful from now on. Sora listened to the girls and thought that maybe this was the right place to look for any clues. Sora turned to the girls and said that it was difficult for him to say this, and he knows that it may sound cruel. But still, Sora said that 10 years have passed since the war. There is no guarantee that these two are alive after so long. Sora asked the girls why they were still confident that they were alive. Chris and Rurika exchanged glances with each other and smiled sweetly. The girls clenched their fists and held out their hands to Sora. They had 2 amulets on their palms. Sora was very surprised and asked the girls what it was. Rurika told the guy that these are called spirit amulets. Grandma told him that 4 of them are connected into one whole, and Rurika definitely felt that the amulet was telling her that Sora and Eris were alive, and they also wanted to meet them. Rurika admitted that it might not sound good, but still, to be honest, they wanted to stay with Sora longer, but they definitely have to continue their journey to find their friends. Sora tensed slightly and thought that it was their decision to go in search of the girls. And he knew for sure that they were reliable companions. But still, they have even stronger characteristics than he thought. The girls have become adventurers who are always accompanied by danger in order to find their lost friends. Therefore, Sora was sure that he would be proud to have been in their squad once. Sora turned to the girls and told them that he believed in them. They will definitely succeed. Sora said that he also plans to visit all kinds of countries, so he will also look for clues about Sora and Eris. Rurika and Chris immediately felt some guilt towards the guy, and Rurika told Sora that he would not have to do this. Chris added that they didn't want to involve him in their worries and problems, but despite this, Sora replied that in no case would it cause him any problems. The guy asked not to misunderstand him, but he really wants to help the girls with their searches. This really touched Rurika and Chris. They began to think over the guy's words. There were barely noticeable tears in Chris's eyes, because it was very important to her. Sora saw the girls' tears and held out his own to them as support. The girls held out their hands in response. Chris and Rurika couldn't hold their tears any longer and immediately burst into tears. The girls thanked Sora for being so supportive in a difficult moment of their lives. Meanwhile, there are 3 days left before ordering an escort. Sora woke up in the morning, stretched himself, and said that it was such a pleasant morning. Sora thought that last night, when he raised his detection skill level, he noticed something. The guy thought that several times before it seemed to him that someone was watching him. This feeling had not gone away from him, and now he was sure that someone was clearly watching all his actions. It made the guy wonder who needed to keep an eye on him. But just in case, Sora decided to take the stealth skill and a few more skills that interested him. Meanwhile, the guy had stealth skills, which allows the user to erase his presence in order to remain unnoticed. Alchemy, Aiko. Apio allows you to create various items from ingredients. Cooking, the user gets knowledge about cooking in a new world. Sora looked at his status bar and thought that he didn't know why someone was watching him, but for now, he decided to pretend not to notice it. But still, the guy doubted for a long time whether to take the cooking skill. But in order to travel in this big world, good food will definitely not hurt any of them. After all, for a person who travels the world, It is necessary to know exactly which ingredients are poisonous, which can be eaten, how to combine them with each other. Meanwhile, Sora was walking along a small path and looked at the sky. There, he saw huge birds. Sora began to think about the plans for today. First of all, he needs to go to the forest, where he usually collects herbs in order to try out his new skills and practice. The guy was walking through the forest and thought that even though the wolves were exterminated, he still felt very scared. Sora sat down in a small clearing and decided that this place would be perfect for him. But before that, the guy decided that he would take a short break. Sora took out a plate and said that he was a little hungry, so it was time for him to have a snack. The guy left the last piece of bacon just for this. The guy had a bale of firewood, rations, and bacon in his inventory. Sora applied his skills and took out the bacon from the inventory. It settled on his plate. But Sora looked at the plate and was very surprised. The guy noticed that his last piece of bacon had gone bad. Mold appeared on it, and it was unsuitable for food. Sora said that, probably, if the level of spatial magic is too low, then time does not stop. The guy was sorry that he couldn't save his food, but Sora suggested that he needed to raise his level for this. Suddenly, Siley poked into Sora's face several times in support. The guy was slightly surprised and asked Jail that he was telling him not to worry about it. Sora laughed a little and thanked the furry creature for its support. But the guy thought that it wasn't that he had touched him. Sora thought for a while about what he should do and figured out that he would do it all over again. He will try to cook bacon as he was taught in the village. Seal nodded approvingly at the guy. Sora looked at his groceries and said they had pork for bacon. The guy took some wolf meat out of curiosity. After a while, Sora said that he had cooked all the meat as the headman had explained to him, and now he had to set up a tree that he had brought from the village. But it was still difficult for the guy. Suddenly, a knife jumped out of Sora's hands, and the guy did not have time to react, and brought a splinter to himself. The guy's finger was very swollen and hurt. Ciel also felt sorry for Sora, and he was sad. Despite his injury, Sora laid out the wood at the bottom of the pan, and to separate the meat from the coals, he put a frame of grass there. It was a mesh grass. It grows near water, and according to its characteristics, it was very tough. Next, Sora put the meat on the grill and used the skin as a lid in order to keep the smoke out. And now he can only sit and wait. Suddenly, a hint appeared right in front of the guy's eyes, with the inscription, Z. Description. Asoe. Attention. It stated that for the best taste, the guy should smoke wolf meat longer than pork. Sora immediately realized that this hint was due to his culinary skill, and he had just told the guy to leave the wolf meat longer. Sora did so and continued to wait for the dish to be cooked. Suddenly, the guy heard some strange noises near him. Sora turned his head and saw that there were two strange kind of animals. Sora saw them and thought they were very cute. The animals interested the guy, and therefore he wondered who they were. And for this, he uses the assessment skill. Sora was informed that these animals are called Michiwo and they can be found in the forests. They are incredibly pleasant to stroke, and because of this, they have a relaxing effect. Soru liked it, and he extended his hand towards Michiwo. But the animals immediately turned away from the guy in salt. Sora was very surprised and thought that he wanted to pet them, but they are very wary of him. Therefore, the guy couldn't get too close to the animals. It really upset the guy. But he decided not to stop and apply his new stealth skill. This allowed Sora to get closer to Michiwo and gently stroke their soft fur. The guy's stealth skill is used to weaken the visibility of his presence, and it is also effective against surveillance. Sora was delighted with how nice the fur of the animals was. She was as smooth as silk. And after that, the animals began to climb up Sora's clothes and climb up. Sora got the most out of it and thought they were so cute. It was such a blessing for him. Suddenly, Sora felt Seal's piercing and displeased gaze on him. The guy realized that the furry animal was getting jealous of him. Sora immediately turned to Seal and told him that he didn't want to do this to him. And even though Sora apologized to Seal, the furry creature still turned away from the guy and began to fly away. Sora tried to catch up with Seal so that he wouldn't be offended by the guy anymore. And at that moment, the meat continued to cook. After a while, Sora decided it was time to check the meat. The guy opened the skin, which was used as a lid, and looked at the meat with admiration. Sora said that the color of the meat is a little pale, but it smells the same as in the village. Sora chopped 2 pieces of meat on 2 different forks and told Chiel that it meant they would share a piece for each. Sora handed the fork to the furry creature and it ate the meat in 1 second. Sora also tasted his piece. Sora and Chiel were delighted with how delicious it was. Sora said that the taste of his dish still does not reach the taste from the village, but it is hot and very tasty. The pork turned out so juicy and the wolf meat lost its smell due to the aroma of wood. And as a result, both of these dishes turned out to be very tasty. Sora and Ciel were happy, and the guy said that he had eaten so much bread and bacon. The guy suggested that Ciel try alchemy skills. Sora looked at the status bar and saw that he could already make potions. But he could only make them from herbs, such as medicinal herbs or endurance herbs. For the potion, the guy needed to take medicinal herbs. But Sora was surprised that he would not even need a pot to make it. Next, Sora had to pour mana into them and imagine the result. It was a potion. Sora worked on it for a while, and a small bottle appeared right in his hands. Sora was very surprised and asked if he really managed to make a real potion. This potion was even with a flask, but Sora did not understand what kind of logic it was. The guy couldn't figure out if it was really a real thing or not, so Sora decided to apply his assessment skill. Sora was presented with information that the prepared potion heals wounds. You can drink it or pour it out. The effect of its restoration was negligible, and the quality was low. Sora was very surprised and said that even if the potion was of low quality, it was just a normal potion. Sora couldn't believe that he had done it himself. But still, Sora was very curious if his potion was working the way it should. The guy suggested trying to use it on the splinter he got earlier. Sora applied a few drops to the wound. After a moment, Sora felt the pain in his finger go away, but the finger itself was still red. Sora asked that it was because the recovery effect was negligible. Sora confidently said that everything was fine. Next, he decided to try using higher quality herbs and pour in more mana. Sora picked up a medicinal herb of excellent quality. The guy had a small bottle in his hands again, and Sora immediately applied an assessment to it. It was a potion that heals wounds. It could be drunk or poured out. The effect of his recovery was small and the quality was low. Sora thought about it and said that the recovery effect had increased from insignificant to small, but the quality remained at a low level. This means that he will still have to use more skill points. Sora couldn't decide what to do with the potion, drink it or pour it. The guy wondered what it tasted like, and so he decided to drink it. Suddenly, the guy abruptly spat out all the potion he had decided to drink. The potion hit Ciel directly. Sora said that it was very bitter and tasted nasty. The guy immediately began to adjust himself to the fact that he could no longer receive wounds, otherwise he would drink it. After that, Sora decided to share his dish with Ruruka, and he also treated Chris and Makara. The homemade bacon was very well received by the girls. They couldn't stop from eating the dish and telling the guy he was a magician. Meanwhile, the morning of the escort order has arrived. Sora raised the storage magic level and put in all sorts of useful things that he received from the kebab seller. And now Sora was ready to move out. The innkeeper told Sora that it would be very lonely there now. But the guy replied to the woman that he would come back, and then he would be under her care again. The hostess saw the guy off with a smile and asked him to return as soon as possible. They will always have a place for him. They said goodbye to each other. After staying in this hotel for about a month, he will leave for a short time. Sora decided to take a fleeting look at his native landscape. The guy has been preparing for this task a lot. For example, he cooked more bacon and raised his fencing level. He also upgraded his levels and so on. And now he can read part of the list of professions, which until now was practically impossible to read. The list of professions included alchemist, cook, and thief. Sora thought that it looked like there were already professions that he could choose with the skills he had now. But he doesn't know if he can change it later. Sora can't read everything yet. It was very difficult for him to do it. He decided to think about it when he raised his level. Sora walked up to the gate and heard Ruruka and Chris calling out to the guy. They called him over to them. Sora told the girls that there were so many people there. Ruruka replied that yes. This time there were 7 horse-drawn wagons and 5 escort squads. Sora said that it turns out that they are not the only ones on guard. Suddenly, a man came out to all those present and wished them good morning. The man bowed to everyone and said that they thanked them for accepting their escort order. The man introduced himself, saying that his name was Dalton and he was leading this caravan. The man said that their plans were as follows. After exiting through the western gate, they would walk for 4 days to the city of Oka, where they would make a stop for 1 day. Then they will be on the road for another 6 days, and they will reach their destination, the trading city of Thesis. Dalton said that, at least for a short time, he was looking forward to working with them. He bowed again, and everyone applauded the man. He also said that members of the veteran Mountain Goblin squad would be looking after the order. It was a Sea-Crank squad. Dalton provided a few words to the leader. Sora was very surprised to see Siphon there. Siphon himself also joyfully called out to Sora and said that to think they were on the same order together. Siphon happily hugged the girl and asked everyone else if they had heard that Ray had proposed. The girl was slightly embarrassed, but still, Siphon became serious and prepared for a speech. The man introduced himself once again and said that he was the leader of the Mountain Goblin squad. Siphon has heard that they have several people there who are participating in an escort order for the first time. The man said that their journey would be long and their task was to keep an eye on monsters and robbers along the way. Siphon suggested that everyone just have fun on this order, and everyone cheered and supported Siphon. Sora thought that this was his first escort order, and it was about to start. The guards gave the command to open the gate, and a large column of horse carts and people set off. Sora thought that until they got to Olga, the carts would be full of cargo and would have to drive slowly. Since there are no seats, everyone will have to walk next to the wagons. Ruka turned to Sora and invited him to do everything in their power. Sora supported the girl. One of the participants in the task called out to Sora and the girls and asked them that they were also newbies. Sora replied that he was the only one like that and the girls were already engaged in similar orders. The guy said that he understood everything and now they will be friends. The guy laughed and said that this was the first escort order for them. But it seems to him that it will be easy. All they have to do is walk side by side. Sora supported the guy and said that it was true. Rika turned to the guys with a serious face and said that they should not underestimate this. They had already taken similar orders. They were quite complicated. The guy replied to the girl that it was possible for 2 young ladies, but they had plenty of strength. Siphon looked at the guys and told the girl that he thought they were having fun there. The girl replied that she was wondering if everything would be okay with the newcomers. After all, she was very worried about them. Siphon laughed and replied that although it would not be so easy, the order might seem quite easy. They need to try to keep an eye on their surroundings. You can never know in advance when they might be attacked by monsters or bandits. And all this with relentless walking. This is a simple but complex order. In addition, they are spurred on by a large fine if part of the cargo is stolen or damaged. Also, the constant guard is mentally exhausting. At the same time, the need to keep up with the pace of the wagons will be a test of endurance. Siphon said that adventurers who take on an escort order for the first time usually end up dead tired. The girl asked Siphon that if he already knows this, then how about giving them some advice? Siphon replied that there should be no serious dangers until they reached Oka. Experiencing difficulties for themselves is what will help them grow up. Siphon asked the girl to look at them because they were very happy. Either they are dumb, or perhaps they show real prospects. Well, they'll see what happens. Meanwhile, an hour had passed. The guy looked ahead and said that there was someone coming again. The guy grabbed his sword and became alert. But the cart passed by, and the guy relaxed. He said that every time a cart passes by him, he can't help but think that they might be bandits in disguise. The girl told him that for sure, whenever she hears something in the grass, she expects a monster to jump out. Another guy said he was very tired. The guy said that they should keep going and be constantly on the lookout. It's not easy at all. Suddenly, Sora handed the guys a mug of water. They were very surprised by this and immediately began to quench their thirst. The girl asked Sora that he could use simple magic. The guy looked at Sora and said he didn't look tired. He asked Sora that he was a beginner like them. Sora started to get nervous and he replied that yes, he was. The guy thought it was because his walking skill was saving him. Sora thought that he could check the other carts and the surroundings with the detection skill. This skill was activated for him, and the guy does not spend SP when using skills, because he is walking. Sora thought that he was gaining guild experience by ordering escorts and training his skills at the same time. And besides, he gets XP for every step. He kills 2 birds with 1 stone. Or even 3 birds with 1 stone. Or even 3 birds with 1 stone. Sora thought that perhaps they shouldn't be told about this. But the guy was very surprised by Sora. and asked him why he was grinning. Sora replied that he just likes to walk. Everyone around couldn't believe it because their strength was running out. Sora said that this was the kind of person he was, and the guy told him that he was just crazy. Meanwhile, 10 hours have passed. Siphon turned to the guys and said that everything was fine. They were great fellows. Siphon suggested that they camp there for the night. But all the guys were very exhausted from the road, and they just fell to the ground. Siphon asked the guys what happened to them. It's only the first day. Once they get to Oka, they can ride the wagons. Everyone immediately began to resent that they had to walk for 3 more days. Suddenly, Siphon's gaze will stop at something. The man saw Sora standing over Chris and Ruruka and trying to support them. Sora asked the girls if they were okay. Siphon was surprised by Sora's strength and endurance and said that he had performed well. Siphon turned to Sora and asked the guy that he was still able to walk. Then he can help them set up camp. Sora replied that yes, he would try, but people couldn't figure out how Sora could still move. The evening of the first day came. Siphon turned to Sora and said that they needed to prepare food first. The man asked Sora if he could cook. Ruruka immediately replied that yes, indeed. Chris said they could cook too, but after they rested a bit. The ingredients they use for dinner are provided by their client. This was the first time Sora had used such a large pot with the ingredients of this world. The guy really hoped that he would succeed. Sora thought that there were some ingredients that he didn't know the taste of. But his culinary talent will take care of it. Today, the guys will have a hearty soup with fragrant spices for dinner. The guy understood that any difficulties of travel can be overcome with food. Ruruka tasted the dish and told Sora that this soup is so spicy, but it's cool. Chris added that there are many different ingredients in it. Ruruka said that she knew Sora could cook great, but in fact, he could cook from anything. Sora replied to the girl that no, it was all because they helped him. Chris and Ruruka exchanged glances with each other, and only they wanted to answer the guy. But Sora beat them to it and said that he knows what they want to tell him. Sora asked the girls that they wanted more food, but it was tedious to leave it to others. And suddenly Sora takes out a plate of bacon and hands it to the girls. They shouted with joy. Chris and Ruruka were the happiest, and they said this bacon is the best. Sora said it was in his magic storeroom. There's still a lot of it there. The guy was glad that he thought of doing so much. Suddenly, Sora stood up to move away. The girls asked the guy where he went. Sora took a few pieces of bacon and told the girls that the other participants were probably still hungry too, so he'll go and share with them. The girls were slightly surprised by this, but then smiled. They were pleased with the guy's care. At that moment, a squad of rank C, A, mountain goblins were chatting in a small circle and having dinner. Sora came up to them and wished them a good evening. Siphon was glad that Sora had come to them. The man hugged the guy and asked him to sit with them. Sora apologized to the guys for disturbing them. Yuno greeted Sora and said that Siphon had told them a lot about him. This surprised the guy very much. Siphon told Sora that this was his wife, whose name was Yuno. The guy was even more surprised by this. Siphon told the guy that they were just talking about him, that they had a character here. One of the squad members told the guy that his walking pace was really good today. Everyone else agreed with him. The guy was very embarrassed, and he timidly thanked the guys. Sora told the squad that he had prepared something for them and thought that maybe they wanted it too. Siphon replied to Sora that he was so caring and had not forgotten about them. The man asked Sora what it was. He had never seen anything like it before. Yuno asked the guy if it was already cooked or raw. The guys decided to taste the guy's dish. They immediately said with admiration that it was very tasty. Siphon told the guy that such a thing is rarely found even in the capital. Yuno said it was so delicious that she would eat it every day. Sora was very glad that the guys liked his dish. He learned how to cook it in the village, where they went to order. Suddenly, Siphon's face became very serious, and the man turned to Sora. Siphon said that he had already heard that he and the girls were going to disband their squad. Therefore, he would like to ask the guy if he would like to join their squad. The guy looked at the man in surprise. Siphon said that he has stamina and strong legs, lower back. He can cook great dishes. Siphon was absolutely sure that it would be fun and very useful if a guy like Sora joined them. The rest of the squad told Sora that his soup was delicious. Sora was very tense, and Siphon added that it was not a bad offer. Sora replied to Siphon that he was glad that he thought so highly of him. But after teaming up with Ruruka and Chris, he realized that he still had a long way to go. That's why Sora wants to travel on his own for a while. But so far he can't take care of himself. But despite his answer, Sora asked the guys not to hesitate to invite him back to their squad. Siphon was a little embarrassed and said that he had been rejected. Sora tensed up and apologized to the guys, but still, he thanked them for the invitation. Siphon replied that it was a disaster, but there was nothing to be done. Yuno told Sora that yes, if he changed his mind, then let him inform them about it. Sora thanked all the guys for their support. At that moment, Sora thought that he had a strange feeling that someone was watching him. The guy feels that he could endanger the others if he joins another squad. That evening, Sora shared his dream with other adventurers and merchants, and he heard all kinds of stories about this world. Meanwhile, night had fallen. Sora lay beside Chris and thought that he could hear her breathing. The guy couldn't figure out what to do, because he couldn't sleep because of it. Sora decided to try to at least partially fall asleep with parallel thinking. 3 days later, the column of adventurers reached their first stop, Olka. The guys began to rejoice and shout that they were finally in place. Sora thought that this city was Olka. There aren't as many tall buildings as in the capital, but the cityscape was amazing. The city itself was very beautiful. Siphon turned to the guys and told them that they were all doing well. The man said that now they need to unload the wagons, so tomorrow they have a day off. He asked the guys to rest while they had the opportunity. Suddenly, Siphon asked the guys to remember that it would be dangerous now. He also asked them not to forget to restock their potions just in case. Siphon looked at the guys and thought they weren't listening to him. The guys only agreed to go to lunch right now. Chris turned to Sora and told him that they would be free tomorrow. Rurika happily asked the guy what they would do. Sora replied to the girls that he wanted to do something tomorrow. The final destination of the team is the trading city of Phasis, but merchants unload and stock up on goods already here, near the capital in the city of Olka. The rest of the adventurers are just messing around, spending time in bars. Everyone spends time in their own way, for example, plans to sleep all day. But as for Sora and the girls, they have specific plans for this day. Sora went up to the horses and wished them good morning. There were many horses lined up in front of the guys who took the heavy load to the city. Sora and the girls were standing by the horse carts and buckets of water were next to them. They were mentally preparing for the fact that now they will do the hard work. Sora decided that they would take care of the horses today. The boys had buckets, rags, and combing brushes in their hands, as well as a bag of treats for the horses. Chris turned to the guy and asked him why he decided to do this today. Sora replied that it was the first time he had seen them. Therefore, it is a sin not to try. Sora thanked the girls for agreeing to help him, despite the fact that they were tired. Chris replied that no, she was also interested in seeing the horses. Rurika added that they are fine after a good sleep. Sora replied to the girls that it was great. Dalton gave him a couple of tips yesterday, so they can get to work now. Sora told the girls that they needed to feed the horses first. The guy thinks that horses in this world also like vegetables that look like carrots. Sora handed the carrot to the horse. First she sniffed it, and after that, the horse happily ate it. Chris also tried to feed her horse. The horse ate a carrot in an instant, and the girl said that this horse was very cute. After that, she started giving a few more carrots and told the horse that she could eat as much as she wanted. She still had a lot of vegetables. The horse took advantage of this opportunity and ate everything the girl gave it. Suddenly, the girl's bag of vegetables abruptly became empty. She was very surprised by this and asked that the horse had already eaten everything, and she had run out of vegetables. Chris told the horse that she was going to go and get more carrots, but the horse had other plans. She was looking intently at Chris's head and seemed to be preparing for something. The girl was wary. The horse started chewing on Chris's hair, and the girl started panicking and screaming. Sora and Rurika immediately helped the girl to keep her hair intact. The guys started to get acquainted with the horses. They were stroking them, and Rurika thought that this horse was eating so fast. Sora was also very touched by how cute they were. Next, Sora's plan was to clean the horses. Sora prepared a bucket of water and a cloth. The guy poured a bucket of water on the horse and said it was pretty dirty after 4 days of walking. Therefore, the guy really wanted to make it clean and beautiful. The girls also joined the guy and began to wash the horses. They poured whole buckets of water on them, wiped them with a rag, and they had a lot of fun. Sora turned to the horse and said they were done with it. Washing them is quite tedious for a guy, so it will take a long time. Immediately, Sora thought that it would take a whole day if they continued at the same pace. And then Sora remembered something. Sora applied his cleaning skill, and in the next instant, everything around him began to change. The horses became very clean and happy. They began to joyfully jump and have fun. Sora laughed a little and said that now they would comb their fur. Sora went up to one horse and began to scratch it with a brush. The guy thought he had such a good physique, and the brush goes so smoothly. Sora thought that he could see that the merchants had raised them with great care. Ruruka told the guy that it must be very pleasant. That's why the girl wanted to try it too. Chris joined in this desire. The children began to scratch the fur of the animals with tenderness and care. Suddenly, Sora heard a strange noise behind him. Sora looked up and saw that Seal was there. Sora saw that Seal was very sad, and it was as if he was asking the guy for something. Sora thought that the furry creature wanted to be petted, but the guy waved his head and told Seal that he couldn't touch him. This upset Seal very much, and because of this, he flew away from the guy again. He flew not far away and began to feel very sad there. Sora noticed this. The guy smiled slightly and used storage magic. He took out a small piece of bacon from his inventory. Seal immediately realized that Sora had food in his hands. A second later, Seal had already eaten this piece, and immediately after that, he flew away from the guy again. Sora thought that he was such an arrogant guy. Meanwhile, the guys continued to clean, scratch, and feed the horses. Dalton came to the guys and saw that Sora and the girls had put the horses in order. The man thanked the guys for taking care of the animals. He can even hear their joyful neighing. Sora replied that he shouldn't thank them. It was a wonderful experience. Rorika supported the guy and said that the horses were very cute. Dalton asked the guys what it really was. Horses are good partners for people. And the man was glad to hear the guy say that. Dalton stroked the horse and said that the animals seemed to like them very much. The man asked the guys if they would like to try riding them. The guys answered without hesitation that yes, of course. Dalton put the boys on horses and told them they were doing well. And so the guys, led by Dalton, went for a short walk. Sora couldn't understand that he was actually on a horse right now. Rurika asked Dalton why they were so used to people. The man replied that, in fact, horses are very sensitive to emotions. The fact that they are so relaxed means that they are all kind-hearted people. Sora asked Dalton if he really thought so. The guy hoped that it was true. Sora noticed a beautiful landscape, the sun setting behind the mountains. Sora thought about how beautiful it was. It was very refreshing for the guy to see this landscape from a height. Sora turned his gaze to his girls for a second. He fixed his gaze on Chris. Sora thought that she was very beautiful. Suddenly, Sora felt that Dalton and Rurika were looking at the guy with a sly grin. This made Sora nervous, and he immediately told the guys that it was time for them to go back because it was already late. Chris supported the guy and said that yes, it's time for them. Sora was surprised that Chris supported him. This confused the guy even more, and he shouted to the guys to all run. The horse's horse abruptly jumped off and ran. Sora began to panic and asked the horse to run not so fast. The next morning, Siphon said that they were starting the second stage. It would take them 6 days to travel from Oka to the trading city of Phasis. So they had to do it. The guys were ready for the road. They didn't have to go from Oka to Phasis anymore. Most of the carriages were unloaded at Oka, which made room for new goods and adventurers. The guys themselves are responding to wagon number 3. Some adventurers sit on the roofs of their wagons in order to explore the surroundings. Sora climbed onto the cart, and Rurika asked the guy not to fall. Sora wrapped the ropes around himself and tightened them. It was more comfortable for him on the wagon than he thought. The coachman turned to Sora and said that they were increasing the pace a little, so it would be a little shaky. He asked the guy to be careful, because people who are not used to it often get seasick. Suddenly, the guys began to shake violently. Sora turned to the girls and asked them if they were okay. Rurika replied that yes, they were fine. The girl asked how Sora was doing. The guy thought that it was not very good for him. His ass hurts, and he's sick of all this shaking. But suddenly Sora noticed that his nausea had passed. The guy realized that this was his enhanced recovery skill. Thanks to him, motion sickness disappeared, and his ass was back to normal. Sora replied to the girls that he was fine and could handle anything. Sora realized that as soon as he thought it was over, the nausea returned again, and it is possible that it will be even worse. Sora really hoped that this would at least help him develop his skill. That would be great for him. The guys continued their journey without incident. They were in a good mood. The coachman asked Sora that they were going to split up after they got to Phasis. Sora replied that he did. The coachman said it was so sad to travel with 2 such beauties, and then part with them. The coachman told the guy that if he were in his place, he would just go with them. He would even give up trading. Sora laughed a little. It's been 4 days since they left Olka. The carts are on their way again after a meal break. The trading city of Fessus is still about 2 days away. The whole journey was very smooth for them. The guy understood that they had no problems. But suddenly something changed in his head. Sora received a message from the detection skill that there was someone in the forest somewhere to the right. Sora immediately called out to the guys. But Sora stopped himself because no one knows about his skill. The guy thought that maybe he should tell him about it right now. The coachman asked Sora what he had up there. The guy started to hesitate. Sora thought about what he should do now. He doesn't know if they are really monsters, and if the guy tells them about his skill, whoever is watching him may realize that he has noticed it. Sora thought that someone would notice even if he didn't say anything. Suddenly, Selim appeared next to the guy again. Unexpectedly for the guy, CL walked right through the mess. Sora asked CL what happened to him. He thought he didn't like going through things. Sora noticed that Shiel was very sad. This made the guy very wary. Sora introduced his friends and thought that they could all be in danger, and for some reason he was worried about himself. Sora realized that he didn't need to talk about his skill directly, but to pass it on to someone. Sora turned to Ririka and told her that he had an uneasy feeling about the forest on the right. The girl immediately began to explore the area, and Sora said that he could not understand what it was. The guy asked Ririka to take a look. The girl did this, and a shock appeared on her face. Rurika immediately called Saifon and told him that she had an urgent report. The girl reported that the 6 objects on the right side, judging by their size, are probably wolves, and they are approaching them. Saifon stopped all the carts in an instant. Saifon informed the entire squad that 6 monsters were coming at them from the forest on the right, and they were probably wolves. Everyone began to whisper, and Saifon gave an order to take up combat formation. Saifon said that their initial task was the safety of merchants and horses. The second was cargo. Only then comes the safety of the adventurers themselves and the lives of their comrades. The guys started panicking and saying that they hadn't fought the wolves yet. She hopes that they will succeed. Sora continued to look towards the danger. The guy tensed up and thought that something was wrong there. Sora noticed that their movements were very strange. It's like one is chasing 5 others. Saifon heard a rustle from the forest and told the whole squad that they were coming. White wolves and a huge monster jumped out at the guys behind them. This monster grabbed one of the wolves. Saifon immediately realized that it was a tiger wolf. The white wolves were running away from the monster. That's what confused Sora. The white wolf, being in the mouth of the monster, began to whine in pain. The other wolves heard this and immediately turned to their comrade. They saw that one of their comrades was in trouble. Sora watched this carefully and thought that they were attacking the tiger wolf to save him. The wolves were very angry at the monster, and so they attacked the tiger wolf, fighting for the life of their comrade. But in an instant, the tiger wolf kicked away all the wolves that attacked him with his paw. The white wolves flew into the air and then fell to the ground. The guys were shocked, and Sora thought that he had thrown them aside with one blow. The white wolves stood on their paws and began to tremble in pain. The tiger wolf growled furiously, and the white wolves began to tremble even more. From the roar of the evil monster, the white wolves began to run away. They were running straight towards the wagons and the squad. Saifon warned all the guys that they were coming. They needed to get ready. Saifon said that the newcomers stay behind and protect the merchants, while the rest go into battle with the wolves. Saifon asked no one to panic and destroy them one by one. Their squad will take care of Tiger Wolf. Sora called out to Saifon and asked him why they shouldn't help the guys. Saifon replied that they still hadn't rested from the road, so they would only get in their way. Saifon asked them to just watch the battle and leave it to the experienced adventurers. Yuno told Saifon that they were already on their way. Saifon replied that he understood, and so the tiger wolf rushed straight at the squad. The monsters stopped near the squad. Saifon turned to Yuno and said that, as always, he was leaving the rear to him, and the vanguard will cut it into pieces. Suddenly, Saifon told Yuno that she was so beautiful today. This alerted Yuno, and she immediately began to use her power. Yuno's power rushed straight towards the tiger wolf, and the vanguard prepared for the attack. The guy swung at the tiger wolf with all his might, but the monster bounced off and was not injured. The vanguard clucked and got angry. The monster prepared to attack the vanguard. He swung his paw at him, but a shield appeared right in front of him. This shield was put up by his partner, and the vanguard said it was good. The guy began to control the shield and control the blows of the monster. At that moment, Siphon prepared for battle. Siphon swung and struck with all his might right at the monster. A smile appeared on Siphon's face, and the guy shouted, now. Suddenly, an arrow flew at the monster. It was another member of the squad. The guy was glad that he hit the target exactly. At that moment, Sora and the girls were watching the actions of the squad, and they said that the guys were so well coordinated. Chris said she was very surprised that the guy fired the arrow so quickly without wind magic. Rurika added that it wasn't just the guys who did it. She was sure that the monster had no chance of survival. Sora asked the girls, so this is the group of mountain goblins. They were definitely great adventurers. Sora thought that this was a group of veteran adventurers. At that moment, blood began to drip from the monster's wound. Tigerwalk started shaking, but he was still alive. Meanwhile, on the battlefield, a squad of seasoned men was up against 2 wolves. The Mountain Goblin squad was up against Tigerwalk. The experienced squad was up against 3 wolves. The newcomers guarded the merchants, and the merchants themselves were in the wagons and watched everything that happened there. Tigerwalk weakened a little and began to shake in pain, but he was still ready to attack the guys. The guys watched as the experienced adventurers easily fought the monster. They were talking about how this is a group of mountain goblins. Suddenly, the boys were surrounded by white wolves and prepared to attack. One of the guys told the others to stop watching because they had wolves there. One of the wolves immediately attacked the guys, and the guy managed to stab him with a sword. The guys were screaming and hitting right at the monsters. One of the guys also struck at the white wolf, and his friend told him that he did a great job with him. At this moment, Sora, the girls, and the rest of the newcomers stood with their mouths open and looked at the battlefield. The guys said that they were all so strong and could handle monsters so easily. Ruka said that at this rate, she thinks it's all going to end soon. Sora supported the girl and said that it looked like it. Suddenly, Sora noticed that Seal had flown to him again. Sora asked the furry creature that something was wrong with him. Sal made it clear that yes, it is. Sora clarified with Sal that there was something else there. Suddenly, a rustle was heard from the forest, and at the same second, several more white wolves jumped out at the guys. They rushed out of the forest straight towards the squad. One of the monsters attacked a guy who didn't suspect anything and didn't have time to react. Sora realized that another pack of monsters had run out at them. Sora noticed the attacking monster and asked the guy to be careful. But Sora realized that the guy would not be able to react in time. He directly pushed the guy to the ground, and this allowed the white wolf to rush past him. The wolf closed its mouth in the air and did not hurt anyone. The white wolf stopped and turned back to the guys. Chris was shocked that they were attacked by another pack of wolves. Sora thought about the fact that he had turned off detection and therefore did not notice them. Suddenly, Rika took out her sword and asked the guys not to panic. The girl decided to cheer up the team and told the guys that their duty was to protect the merchants. And everyone cried out in unison that yes, it is. The guys immediately began to destroy all the monsters that attacked them. Rurika managed to land 1 blow on the white wolf. After that, Rurika shouted that it was -1 now. Chris didn't stand still either, and she applied fire magic to a pack of wolves. Some of the monsters were immediately enveloped in fire and they began to burn alive. Sora swung his sword and struck with all his might at the monster that was burning with Chris's magic. This made it possible to destroy another white wolf, and Sora informed his team that they still had about 2 minutes. The guys supported the guys and said that they had a great combo. Next, Chris applied her wind magic to one of the wolves. This allowed a large column of wind to lift the white wolf into the air to neutralize its power. The wind prevented the wolf from getting out. The wolf began to turn somersaults in a large column of powerful wind, and Chris immediately joined the fight. The girl struck directly at the monster, which fell to the ground at the same second. Sora turned to Chris and told her that she had done a great job. Chris replied to the guy that he also did a good job with monsters. At that moment, Siphon, who was trying to cope with the tiger wolf with his squad, thought that the newcomers were somehow too noisy. The adventurers turned to them and asked what was going on there. Suddenly, their eyes widened and they were scared. Siphon told the whole squad that they had another pack of wolves there. The tiger wolf took advantage of the confusion of the squad, who began to growl at the team with all his might. He immediately pounced on them. And the first one hit was the guy with the shield, whom the monster grabbed with his paw. He knocked the guy with the shield aside, and he fell to the ground. The monster rushed past the guys, and when Siphon saw it, he started swearing. The tiger wolf accelerated more and more. He rushed straight towards the rookie team. Siphon realized that they were in big trouble, and so he shouted at Rurika to run, because the girl was the target of the monster. Rurika looked back and saw a tiger wolf running towards her, but even in front of the girl, a white wolf was flying at her. She was confused and thought about being attacked from two sides. Rurika put her two swords right next to the white wolf, exposing her back in front of the tiger wolf. Rurika turned back and realized that the monster was already very close. The girl thought that her business was bad and she would definitely not have time for anything. But then Sora came to the girl's aid, who struck at the paw that rushed towards Rurika. Sora flew past the monster and fell to the ground, doing several somersaults on it. But the guy managed to group correctly. Siphon and Rurika were very scared for the guy. They started shouting at him to come to his senses. Sora began to carefully try to get up from the ground, but he had very little strength and was shaking all over. After that, Sora abruptly stood up and put his sword right next to the monster's muzzle. The guy shouted at him that he definitely wouldn't let him touch his friends with a finger.